The prosecutors have like an order of seniority, and you're at the top of this conspiracy. Today we have the Mr. Big from the Courier Ring.
So it progresses, and then it goes from like 10 to 20, and then you're buying your first 100, and you thought, well, I can't sell them in the clubs now. I was not taking 100 pills in the club. So, or I used to get them in the little bags. And it wasn't about being the centre of attention. It was about belonging to something. And when you come out of the forces, you lose that sense of belonging. That's gone, because everyone in there, you'll think the same, you act the same, everything is the same. When you're out, you're kind of isolated. So to create this kind of at least 12 police officers in plain clothes walking towards me, and I said, "Morning." Looked at them all and they said, "Rich Jones." And yeah, walked up to me and looked at me and said, "We're arresting you for conspiracy to supply cocaine." Another set of police came through my door and they introduced themselves as Gloucestershire Soccer. "We're arresting you for conspiracy to supply cocaine." I thought, "No, mate, you've done this already. It's some kind of mistake." I said, No, we're doing you again." More than a gram of coke before. So when this kilo came in and we looked at it, we thought, shit, look at that. It was like shining, it was pearlescent, it was a particular smell to it. I thought, what we've got to now recraft this.
Many of you watched £3 million Coke Gang Courier with William Garnier, which got 150k views. It was in the early stage of the podcasting we were doing. That one went up, and William was a courier. Today we have the Mr. Big from the Courier Ring, military trained, even had an exit strategy, but also these days is an activist for assisting military veterans, so doing great work. We like to have a story arc that ends with some activism and a positive social message on this channel. It's not about the glorification of big coke smuggling gangs. Thanks for coming on, Rich.
No worries, Shaun.
Did you watch the podcast with William?
I did, yeah. It was really interesting, because I'd not seen William or spoken to him since the day of the sentencing. So it was great to see him again, and he was looking well. And it was great to hear his story, because at the time during when you're on remand, it's really hard to sort of like take on board what's going on in your lives. You're in that fishbowl and you're kind of all trying to figure out what's going on. And to see Will's actual version of events and how it came about for him was really good to see. And it was quite healing to think, we've all been through it in some way or another. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you go into shock, don't you, when you're like first arrested and adapt into the various stages of incarceration and the court system.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So how's William doing now then? I'm sure people watching, I'll put the link in the description box to that one, probably wondering how on earth he's doing these days.
Well, as far as I know, he's doing well. I think with anyone, with the various restrictions we've got, it's hard for anyone to try and have some sort of normality in work. And the same as with a conviction bolted onto that, it's not easy. I think he's working day by day, same as myself. You just focus on what you've got and make the best of it. So yeah, I think he's doing okay.
So when these conspiracies, the indictments come down, the prosecutors have like an order of seniority, and you're at the top of this conspiracy.
Yes, we had two conspiracies.
Okay.
So you've got two operations: Op Berlin, which was with William and his co-defendants; Op Kestrel, which is myself and my co-defendants. Now, I was top of the indictment on Op Kestrel, which was a Bristol-based conspiracy, which is being supplied by the Op Berlin conspiracy, which is linked with William and his co-defendants.
And it links into Serbians as well at some point.
Yeah, which I was completely unaware of at the time.
Yeah.
So when I was first arrested in April 2011, we already knew it was going to be coming on top. We already knew that there was going to be some arrests. And when I was arrested and taken for interviewing, we were given a list of names of people which had also been arrested, which you're unaware of at the time. You just don't know how many doors have gone through. And all the names on there I recognised. I thought, well, that makes sense. That's so and so. I thought, I'm really in trouble here because they've got all the right people that I've been dealing with. I thought they're probably sat 3 feet away having the same grilling. And that was the first arrest. And then, I was luckily released and bailed, and I was getting on with daily business. And then about 2 months later, another set of police came through my door. And they introduced themselves as Gloucestershire Soccer. Were arresting you for conspiracy to supply cocaine. I thought, no, mate, you've done this already. It's some kind of mistake. I said, no, we're doing you again. I said, oh. And I realised at the time this was linked with Williams' firm and so on. So they took me into Gloucester, and then they produced a list of names on this one. And I thought, I don't recognise some of these names. And they don't look English. And I thought and it came about that these names were Serbian. And I thought, where the hell are they getting this stuff from? So that kind of changed the ball game slightly, because I thought it was a really good supply source. And now I know why, because they're pretty reliable through some bad times. I'm not going to condone that, but I thought, right, now it makes sense why we managed to do so well. So yeah, things changed, and I didn't recognise half the names, mainly because when you doing that, you don't use people's full names on the phone. You refer to them as mate or buddy or pal. And when you're seeing people's full names, trying to figure out, well, who's that? Who's this? I didn't even recognise William's name because I knew him as something else.
Yeah.
So yeah, that when, for myself, I was the only person arrested twice and charged twice with both conspiracies. So that complicated things somewhat with the whole court process.
So people watching this are probably thinking, how on earth did you get involved in this? You're a military man. You're a very good speaker. Come across as very intelligent. How, did it build up? So let's go back then to, what it was like for you as a teenager, perhaps. Were you involved in drugs at that age, or were you on a different path back then?
Totally different. I mean, my parents split when I was 14. So that, it happens, and I'm not here there's no finger pointing at anyone. It's just one of those things. Unfortunately, my dad had custody of myself and my brother, and he was working hard. So with him working hard, he was rarely there. And I decided this would be an opportunity for me to be a little bit sneaky. I'll just start bunking off of school, which I found I could get away with. So I kind of began to be slightly evasive at a very young age. And it was kind of like the done thing back in the 80s. Let's bunk off school, let's pop downtown. And so I had very little interest in an academic future, clearly because I didn't turn up to any of my exams. I just didn't bother. And because my dad was so busy, he wasn't really in a position to sort of grip me. He did his best, and he did a fantastic job. Unfortunately, it was me. I wasn't ready for that kind of world. So I kind of dead against drugs, but I was getting up to no good. I was starting to get involved in...
Did you say you were against drugs?
Yeah, totally against drugs. Yeah, really.
What drugs education had you had?
There was none. It just wasn't something, I wasn't aware of it. It just wasn't something that came into my life. The only introduction to drugs I had at that age, at the age of about 15, was in Grange Hill when Zammo got hooked on heroin. And that was about 1985. And if those people who are of a certain age will remember that, they did the song and everything. And that's the only thing I knew about drugs. I thought, well, that's really bad. I'm not going to get involved in that then. So my life was going slightly off-piste, if you like. So I looked at a few options and I thought, well, at 16, I thought I'd try and join the Royal Marines. I applied. They knocked me back, so you're too young, you're not ready for this. Clearly, I wasn't ready. So I went back to just bouncing between different jobs. And at the time, my dad had met another young lady and remarried. And I was 17 at the time. I just didn't get on with her. But I was 17. It's not her fault. She was quite closer to my age than my dad's. Fair play, Dad. Well done. But she's closer to my age. And we were just treading on each other's toes. And I was bunking off of work. And she'd come in and she said, look, you've got to sort yourself out. Why didn't you join the army? And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. Why not? I had no intention of actually getting in. I said, well, let's do this to get her off my back, get my dad off my back. I'll go through the motion, just fell. So I applied for the Royal Tank Regiment at the age of the back end of 17. And by May 1988, I was in basic training. I was already committed at that point.
And speaking of Royal Marines, you've been on Chris Thrall's podcast.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Great guy. What was that experience like?
It was great. It was great because I had no idea how much we had in common about our backgrounds and the things we'd got up to. Although his life was at the other end of the spectrum compared to mine. He was on the end of using drugs and just being completely wild. For myself, it was more a case of distribution. Although I was getting involved in ecstasy and having a lot of fun in my early days.
So he had the Scarface's law then, not to get high on your own supply.
Exactly.
Oh, sensible man. And you had a 15-year run, and that's probably why.
Yeah.
We all end up getting high on our own supply, and it's our downfall.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'll put the link in for what you do with Chris Thrall in the description box. Chris's channel is absolutely thriving. He had Robbie Williams on there, loads of great guests. I urge people to go out and support what Chris does. Chris has always had my back, and then we've had him on the True Crime Podcast twice, so check his stuff out as well. Tank Regiment then.
Yeah.
What's that like?
It was great. I think when you're joining the forces, it's very hard to describe what you go through in basic training. You think that basic training is hard work, and it is. Don't get me wrong; it's a massive sense of mass conditioning of all these recruits, and you get. At the time, it was during the Cold War. It was 1988. We didn't have these issues with terrorism as it is now.
The Russians are coming.
It was basically the Cold War front. We were working in Germany.
Get a nuclear bomb shelter in your backyard.
Panic, everyone's going to push the button.
Yeah.
So Germany was a strange place to be. I was posted straight out there at 18, and I arrived at your unit. You're meeting people from your recruitment area. You're recruited from the same area, so they all speak with a fantastic Southwest accent. We can understand each other. And it was a baptism of fire, because that's when the problems start. Because
this was before the wall came down.
Before the war, 88. Yeah. So prior to the war coming down. So what you've got is predominantly a lot of squaddies where they're very, very bored. Drinking culture is huge drinking culture. And the Nafi bar, and to give you an example at the time, and this is going to seem crazy price-wise, but to buy a beer in the Nafi bar was 1 Deutschmark, which is the equivalent then of 30 pence.
Wow.
Yeah, so you imagine how drunk you're going to be getting on that. And it's ridiculous. It really is. So naturally with the drinking comes everything else, all the violence and the fighting and the initiations. And it was a really brutal time because initiations were just horrendous. The things that go on behind those closed doors. And I can't even go into that because it's just too much.
Oh, please. That's what they want on this channel. Our most watched stuff is like prison, gang rapes and beheadings.
Yeah. Well, I'll give an example. My initiation, when you arrive at your unit, you're going to have to, you drink a thing called a special, and anyone from the tank regiment will dread this. So Nafi bar, you'll basically get sort of grabbed by the senior troopers normally, not the guys who've been promoted, because they don't want to risk getting busted or losing their rank. And they'll do a top shelf, so they get a pint glass and they'll fill up with everything they can find behind the bar. I mean, everything. And you'll make you stand on a table, and there's families, not families, but there's wives and girlfriends. Stand on the table, yank your trolleys down, and get this down your neck. So they pass with this pint glass, and it curdled because they put lime and Baileys in it, and there's cigarette ends floating on the top, and God knows what else. So I necked it, and there's a pickled egg in the bottom.
Oh!
That just rolled down the glass and hit me on the nose, and they said, yeah, eat the pickled egg. So
Oh!
I had the pickled egg, and they said, right, you got a choice. You can either go throw it up now, or it's going to come up later. I tried, but I couldn't. So that was my introduction. And once you've drunk that special, you're kind of in. Initially, they said, yeah, he's willing to do anything, this guy. He didn't run. It wasn't easy. It was one of the hardest things I've done, trying to drink that. It wasn't good. But you're kind of welcomed in. And that's really one of the first initiations. And some of the stuff, there's a lot of bullying goes on behind closed doors. There was then, not so much now. But that was really military life back in the 80s. and even the early 90s.
You said there was a lot of fighting. You're just fighting each other? You're fighting people, rival soldiers, local guys?
Your local garrison town is always a melting pot for violence, and it would always be the case of there would always be these various bars and clubs which are going to be your haunts for squatters. Your locals aren't going in there. Your local Germans, they're not going near the place because it's just horrendous. And you walk in there and you see a club and you'll be gang of infantry over there, gang of artillery over there, gang of tankers over there, gang of something else over there, and you just sat there waiting for it to go off. And it's no fun because you're just drinking, you're waiting for the first person to chuck a pint glass into the next crowd and just wait for it to erupt. That's pretty much what it was.
Sounds like a night out in Aldershot.
Yeah, pretty much any garrison town. It's just horrendous. Yeah, and I don't think it's much better now.
Any memorable fight moments?
No, just too much.
Just mayhem.
Just mayhem. And it's not like, in fact, yeah, there was one. There was one, and it's known as, this goes down in history. We had some rivalry with next door's camp. Always tankies and infantry, and I got a lot of time for infantry now. We're all moved on now. And there was one night in this bar, and I think what happened, a group of local infantry lads had jumped on about 5, 10 or 15 of our guys and given a proper leathering. So we decided we were going to hit the bar the next night. So it's planned. Now, when you go out of your military base, you sign out of the camp. You know, they need to know you've gone out, so you sign back in again. They didn't. They just opened the gates for us. We went out about 10 carloads of people. We drove down to this bar called Publicity's, baseball bats, anything we could have in our hands. And we literally just mobbed the place. So we ran into this bar, 50 strong, and just annihilated the place. Now, what we weren't ready for was the owner, the naturally want to protect his property, to come run out with a samurai sword, start hacking at people, which he was very good at. It was one lad, and he recovered. He took one guy's hand nigh on clean off. It was held on by a tendon and a bit of skin. He required a lot of surgery to get that back on, and he's fairly made a good recovery on that one. But they got cut across the neck. There were slashings everywhere. I'm not surprised. We wrecked his bar. Fair enough, come out and just do what you're going to do. But yeah, this guy, he nearly lost his hand because of it. Wow. He was strapped up for a long time.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a biggie. That was a biggie.
So these bars were there's constant fights then?
Yeah, pretty much.
Did they just not have bouncers? It was just a war zone, is it?
They got guys on the door, but there's nothing they can do. If it goes off, it goes off. They just got to stand back and let you get on with it until it calms down.
That's what they did, just stand back?
Yeah, they used to just let you get on with it.
Bloody hell.
It was just chaos.
Did they try and get you to take it outside so the property doesn't get damaged?
They could try. Usually there's too many, but I think once, and you're not just talking a couple of guys, you're talking a couple of regiments. You're talking a whole load of people. It's not just like 3 or 4 friends. You're talking like you could be have a squadron full of guys against a company full of infantry. You're talking groups of 20s and 30s, and you've got like 3 or 4 door staff.
Holy shit!
And usually the door staff, to be fair, were normally squatters on moonlighting, on nights off.
And who owned these bars?
Who owned them?
Yeah.
Local Germans. I mean, they made a lot of money.
Germans.
Yeah. So they would make a lot of money on us because we drink a lot. Back then, it was a drinking culture.
So they just factor it in as the cost of doing business, that it's going to be a war zone.
But you go in there, you look at around, and you think it's sawdust on the floor, and there's nothing there which isn't already been broken.
Yeah.
Which isn't it? You just got to pick it up and set it straight. It's
not
done. There's no glass cabinets. There's nothing there which is going to get smashed up. It's already been smashed up.
So in bars, typically men meet women, and relationships are formed. Were women would they avoid these places?
Well, that's a weird thing, is you would get women in there, and they were clearly looking for a squaddy.
Yeah,
but
German women.
Yeah. Usually, yeah. But they're not usually the finest ladies going.
Really?
Yeah, usually a bit rough.
Yeah.
I mean, I think everyone's been through them, so you probably wouldn't want to go near them.
My goodness.
Yeah,
because I had an ex-German girlfriend. She was really.
Yeah. I had a couple of German girlfriends, and
I quite like the accent, actually.
yeah. When I was only young, I was only 18, 19 years old, so I was very naive in that world.
Yeah,
it was like I say, a baptism of fire.
Yeah,
it's just a whole lifestyle that you're just not used to, or you're not ready for.
She'd be like, Shaun, you arschloh, come here.
Yeah. We know all the best German words.
Yeah, I do now.
Yeah.
So how long did that fun last then, and you got moved on to something else?
So basically, I served till 95. So we did an operational tour in Northern Ireland in 1990. Amazing.
Any action there?
Yeah, it was. We were on the Chinook coming out of Belfast to be taken to our camp in Armagh, South Armagh, a place called Middletown. We're on the Chinook going out, and you sit along the outside edge of the Chinook. So as you're going along, you got all your kit, you got your weapons, you're ready to go, and suddenly we're not moving in a straight line. We're moving around, and we're kind of moving around in circles there. And we're looking out. I can see out the back door because the back door is half cocked, so you can kind of see out the back door anyway. And you're just thinking, something's going on. And we naturally looking down the ranks of all the guys, and they're passing stuff down. They're passing down loaded magazines charged with ammunition. And so the last 12 guys on, we're dropping you off. There's been an incident. We've not even been on the island more than an hour. And basically a bomb had gone off. It had taken out a car. And I remember it was a mistake. The target was taken out, but as it was timed and triggered, there was a car going the opposite way, and it actually took out, I think it killed 3 Catholic nuns.
Way.
Big press in 1990. This was in June 1990.
Yeah.
So inadvertently, the guys had taken out 3 nuns as well as their target. So we were then aimed to drop off and secure the area. So the Chinook was circular and ready to land. Luckily, the guys who were in their catchment area, they got deployed quick enough. So we just sort of like picked up and carried on. And so we were ready to go. And I thought, I've only been here a few minutes. I'm already going to get down and deal with this. So we had that one. We went through relatively well. Then in November, we had an IED go off, which just missed us.
What was that like?
It was really exciting because I didn't die.
How close were you?
Close enough to feel it.
Yeah.
We'd had an incident that gone off. There had been members of the RUC had been taken out with 1 IED. We were flown in. Now, we'd landed in the area and we had to satellite out, which means when you satellite, you will spiral out from the point of where the incident is. And you're looking for things like command wires, triggering points, any kind of signs of evidence to show that there's been some activity there, just to basically search in the area. So the whole troop's satelliting out in your sort of teams. And we got round to this corner I think we've been there about 30 minutes, and there's been this massive bang and a shockwave. We looked around, this bomb had gone off about 100 meters away, maybe slightly less than that. And it was a secondary device planted for us on a timer. And it was set to go off about 45 minutes after the first device, because they planned and timed how long it takes us to get there. So if we time it to go off at this time, we should get someone. Didn't get anyone.
Wow.
Got a cow. Killed a cow. Didn't kill the cow. But I did kill the cow.
Yeah.
That was a 500-pound bomb. It was a big one.
Holy shit.
So we felt it. And then the downside, we had to dig in then into a trench and live in a trench for 3 days in the middle of November in Ireland. And that was cold and wet, sleeping in a wet sleeping bag. But you don't think of that. You just think the fact that you didn't die.
Yeah.
And that's always a result. You know, there's a lot of guys now who've been over to Afghanistan and Iraq, and they've not been so lucky. And they've got anyone that's had a close call, they've never felt more alive.
That probably gives you like a stoic philosophical perspective of life, does it? That it's a miracle that I'm alive and I'm just going to enjoy the rest of it.
Well, you do, yeah. You're thankful that it wasn't your time.
Yeah.
And then that gives you this ridiculous notion that you might just be slightly invincible, but you're not clearly. But you think, well, I've gone through all this.
Did you get shot at in Ireland?
No, I got shot over by my own guys.
Friendly fire?
Yeah, but it wasn't as such. We were doing a range practice in a place called McGilligan, and normally when you've been on the island for a while, you'd be taken at this place where you can do live firing just to keep your skills honed. And we were doing a fire movement, and we were sort of known as pepper potting, and we sort of a couple of guys go forward, drop down, and the guys behind will cover you. And I'd sort of crept around. We're on this hill, and there's a lot of fern, a lot of bushes, and for a lot of cover. And I was down, and the marshals are supposed to make sure that no one's firing over the top of anyone. It's a safety thing. And I was sat, and I could hear this things sounded differently. You did the crack and the thump and the sound of the rounds, and suddenly there was someone shouting, "Stop! Stop! Stop!" And the guy behind me was kept on fire, and the rounds went just over my head, literally just over my head. So it was close. It was almost a friendly fire on the ranges. So that's pretty close.
So that feeling of invincibility was enhanced by that, or are you thinking, shit?
Yeah, it just kept on getting worse. I'm still not dead. So, yeah. So again, it's something you're used to. You don't see it as weird or abnormal. You think, well, that's just part of the job, isn't it? Whether I get shot or not shot, whether it's practice or real, it happens. It's a calculated risk of what you expect.
Any other close calls?
No, not such. I was very lucky. Being in the armored corps, you're very fortunate in the sense of that your role is as such that you're not going to get deployed to certain areas. Now, our only disappointing thing was when we were in Northern Ireland, the first Gulf Forward kicked off in the back end of 1990. We were watching on the TV in our base in Ireland all of the air fire and the air assaults going on.
Scud missiles.
Yeah, Scud missiles going into
I remember watching
Baghdad.
it too.
Yeah, so we were watching this, all the night shots of all the stuff going on, and we're thinking, wow, that's amazing. And they said, right, when you get back from Ireland, you're being deployed immediately to the Gulf. Well, yes, we're going to go on our tanks, and we're going to go over and do something real. We've been slogging around on foot for the last 6 months in an infantry role, which we enjoyed, but now we get to be a tank soldier and do what we're trained to do. So we got back to Germany, January 1991. We were entitled to a block leave because it's your post tour, you get a bit of time off. So we went home for 3 weeks. Back to Germany again, mid-January, I think. Dates could be slightly hazy. Right, we're getting you back now to Lulworth to retrain and freshen up on the tank gunnery systems. I was a tank gunner. So we're going to get you retrained, refreshed up, and we get you out to the Gulf. Well, great, tanks are out there waiting for us. They've been shipped out. This is great. We're going to go out and just do this for real. And then it stopped.
Oh,
it was over.
Oh.
Literally, we'd finished the training in Lulworth, and we were going to get on the plane and said, sorry guys, not needed.
Wow.
Tanks were out there. So we were required.
And why did you leave the military?
So a couple of reasons. So one was after the Gulf War and Northern Ireland. At that time in 1994, I thought to myself, we did a tour to the United Nations in Cyprus as well, which was just 6 months drinking and partying. It doesn't really count. After that, you thought to yourself, well, what's the chance of anything else going off in my career? I thought, I might just get out. I met a girl on leave as well, and thought I fell in love. And also as well, there were circles of us, because at that time in 93, 94, the Germans had decriminalised cannabis. And a lot of squaddies were sort of having a little dabble, me included. So we were kind of like had these secret little circles going on within our unit, and it still goes on now. It's part of what I'm trying to do is to deter that. And people were experimenting with drugs, mainly cannabis, bit of LSD now and again. And they brought in compulsory drug testing, CDT. And if you get test positive, you're getting kicked out, dishonourable discharge, you're gone, career finished, with a bad discharge as well. So I was experimenting with this. I was thinking I'm enjoying this on leave. A lot of my friends were moving into the ecstasy scene. It's early 90s. They're taking a bit of amphetamine. I was thinking, this is really fun. And I thought, I'm going to get myself in trouble. So I think I've made the conscious decision at the time. And promotion had really slowed down to a halt because when the wall came down in 89, they reduced the forces in Germany quite significantly, and they disbanded regiments, they amalgamated regiments, and put a block on promotion, which meant that you're not going to reprogress because what they've done is they brown lettered and redundancy all the main people out, set the new structure, set up the new regiments, and said, right, work with that for a few years. And I thought, well, I'm 24, I've met a girl I love, I've had a great time in Cyprus, it's raining in Germany, I'm starting to do drugs on a very, very, very low level. I'm going to get out and give it a shot. So I made the decision in 94 to leave and get out and move on, which I did, and at that time, a lot of people were leaving. I mean, not just in our regiment, across the board, a lot of guys thinking the same thing. It's not what it was. It's time to move on. So so I did. I say we because a lot of us left at the same time. And looking at my options to what do I do? What can I do? Academically, as you know, there wasn't much going on for me. So I looked at my role in security and I thought, well, I've done a couple of years in the forces and reconnaissance. I quite enjoy the sneaky beaky stuff. The film The Bodyguard had just been out with Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston. And that was in early 95, late 94.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm going to give that a go. So when you leave the forces, you get given the option to look at a new career path. And offer you can get your budget expands with your experience and your time in the forces. So my budget, I think, was about $4,000 at the time, very much 1994. And they give you a big fat folder to look through. It's all paperwork. This is lot of computers. And look at what your budget will allow you to do. And mine said you can do a close protection course with a company called Task International in Maidstone, 4-week course in a hotel, and you qualify as a bodyguard or close protection officer, and they cover a lot of different aspects of that. I thought, perfect, that's the one for me. It's within budget, I'm going for that. So I did. So I went on, a friend of mine who I was in the forces with, we both did the same course. He was getting out as well. And off we went to Maidstone, jumped on a plane, off to Maidstone. And the crazy thing is they gave us the cash, which is really stupid to give squaddies the cash to pay for the course when you get there. A lot of squaddies don't make it to the course; they just spend the money. We got there, paid the bill.
Is this the $3,000?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Wow.
We actually made money on the exchange rate as well, which was really good. So we got back and we did this course with ex-SBS, which was a fantastic course. I'll never forget the instructors, both special forces, working with them, police force, and different people sort of training us all the different aspects of CP work. I loved it. The whole point of what we were doing, the level of training, from what I learned in the forces, in the 4 weeks with these guys was elevated so much. It was just incredible. The things they taught me about CP work, self-defense, surveillance, the weapons they use, weapons training, weapons handling, disarming people. In that 4 weeks, I learned so much with these guys. It's a testament to what these guys are all about, the special forces. And I'm not going to claim I've not got special forces training, but I was trained by these guys and it was incredible.
What does CP stand for?
Close protection.
Close protection. So if I've got a knife then, and I come at you, what
I've already shot you.
What about that one?
Yeah. So I'm rusty now. Some points ago, it forms of Aikido.
Yeah.
Where you use leverage. I mean, the one is you grab the barrel of the weapon. I'm not going to show, but you can disarm someone pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And you generally speaking, you've got the weapon from them, and you've got control of that trigger.
Yeah.
And normally, if you put one in them, you put one in them, don't you? So I'm lucky I haven't had to use that before.
Right.
Chance on I'll probably just get shot.
Yeah, we had Alex Reed put me in a chokehold right here, almost put me to sleep one time.
Yeah.
They love demonstrations on this channel. So you did your training.
Yeah.
And then are you like assigned then to powerful people, famous people or anything
like
that?
So this was the really scary thing now. The forces is really good at making you feel very confident in your abilities to survive and everything else. So you just kind of keep that in the back of your mind for now. And then you do this course with the special forces and add that to an already overly confident and unrealistic person at the age of 25. And then you think to yourself, I'm really special. You think that because the military make you feel like you are to a point because of the things you're prepared to do. So I got a job straight away in surveillance immediately with ex-police force, ex-special forces, ex-HMRC. And it was amazing because I was following people around. I was actually doing footwork. It was before the cameras were the size of suitcases.
Yeah.
So it was really hands-on stuff. Did it for about 2 years, but I was doing some CP work in high-end security. And these were the kind of catalysts which kind of started to make me make some poor life decisions, because in 95 at the same time, I was enjoying my clubbing. So I've got kind of two things going on. One is my CP work. The other one is my clubbing and my partying.
Which clubs are you going to?
In Bristol, there's a club called Odyssey, which it's not Lakota, which was the big, but Odyssey at the time was for me, was mainstream club. It wasn't a sweaty dance club, but I turned it into a sweaty dance club to a point. So that place for me was like, it was like an oasis. So I was doing this CP work, and we were given a job in 96. Me and a good friend, he's my co-defendant actually. I won't tell his name, but he was a co-defendant as well. He was doing CP work as well, a lot of high-end security. And we were doing work for a company called Top Guard, which did all the big boxing venues. They did the ring side, looking after the VIPs in ring side and things like that. And they had a contract with Oasis. So my baptism of fire again was being given work behind the stages or backstage, looking after some of the VIPs on and off and securing the area with Top Guard during the Oasis gig at Nebworth in 96, I think it was. I saw stuff there which I was totally mesmerized by, the amount of drugs going on and after parties and people clearly off their faces all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. And I remember being stood in this tent getting a drink next to Patsy Kensit. At the time she was going out with Liam. So that was that era. It was a messy time. And I said, I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow, just like, because for me that time she'd been in Lethal Weapon before and big names. And it's this little old squaddy just mixing with these, not mixing, but I was in the company of these iconic people. And then the after party, and we were in there. And when I saw what was going around in there, and I'm not going to say, but there were bags of stuff being handed around. And when I realized that this stuff was being supplied by potentially some of the people that were employing me, I thought, I want some of that. If I didn't want some of that in the bag, I want to do what they're doing. It looks really like, wow, how about that? But that was short-lived. That was one experience. That kind of lived and died on that one night. But it's stuck in there. And that sort of thing doesn't go. And I was impressionable. I was confident and I wanted to, okay, that's interesting. I just took note of it. So I was in the clubs, partying and dancing, and this was in 95, approaching 96. And everyone was doing pills. Well, you could see people doing pills because they were having a really good time.
Smiling in their eyes.
Yeah, but I was doing door work at the time. So I was doing door work on the Thursday, Friday and Saturday on a city centre pub. And I was taking amphetamine because I wanted to. No other reason than the fact that I wanted to, and it made me feel good. Ridiculously confident, but it also slightly paranoid, and that's not good if you're on the door. And what I found was, being on the door, I was missing the life I really wanted to be having, which was the clubbing and the partying. So I'd finish my door work at 11 o'clock and I'd go off to the club and catch up with everyone. And then my mates there, and they're all having a good time, and they're clearly off their faces. And I said, what are you doing? So we've done a pill. I went, what have you? I said, got any left? He said, no, but I'll get you one. He said, come with me. I thought, okay, no worries. So I followed him and we went downstairs, and there's podiums in the clubs, and there's two guys, bald heads, off their tits, shirts off, surrounded by women. And I'm thinking, wow, they're having a really good time. And then they looked over and they came and gave a big sweaty hug. There you go, mate, there's your pill. And I had that one, I ate that. And then an hour later on, I didn't know what the hell was going on. But all I knew was that I was having the best night of my life. And these two guys on the podium, they kind of like looked like a focal point in that club. And I thought, okay, I want some of that as well. I like what they're doing. Because the weird thing is, when you're sort of backtrack, when you come on leave from the forces, what I found was everyone's very welcoming. They're glad to have you there. And you kind of, although you're part of this group, you're welcomed into that group. You're not really a part of that group. You're kind of, and I said this to Chris, you're kind of like a satellite on the outside, because you no longer feel like you belong anymore, because you really belong in the forces with your brothers in the forces. So you're not really part of this social gathering or that circle. That although you're not unwelcome, you just don't feel like you fit in as much as you would like to. So you're always trying to catch up with current events. You're always trying to catch up with how people are. You don't really know who's going out of who. You're just, this person's always sort of like on the outside. So for me, when I actually came home and I saw this going on with the pills and ecstasy, I thought to myself, and they're really in the thick of it there. And then I just took note of it. And the group of lads I was knocking around with at the time, we were all just having like a pill on the weekend, on a Saturday, just one pill. And our guy that used to get them for us, he got a little bit paranoid. So I don't really want to get them anymore. I said, well, I'll get them. So where'd you go? And he said, well, the guy, just asked him there, you go to his house the day before or on the day, pick up your gurners, as we would call them, and then, just sort them out. So yeah, I ain't got a problem with that. I've done worse. It ain't going to kill me, is it? I've this sense of invincibility from what I'd been in the forces. So I went and seen him. I said, I'll come down and pick up the things on credit, get them on tick. He said, that's fine, just pay me on Monday. So how many do you want? So I need 5. He said, well, there's your 5. Just pay me for the 4. Tenors at the time. So just pay £8 each. You get yours more or less free. I thought, oh, okay, I just got a free pill. That's brilliant. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting them to pay 50 quid. Not 40 quid. I thought, okay, that's interesting. So went back, sorted the lads out, and next thing you know, I'm kind of like, we're already sorted now. We ain't got to spend our night looking for a pill. We've got it covered. Just enjoy ourselves now.
It's nice to drop it before you go in the club, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, we used to have a routine where we would go out at about 8 o'clock because I just loved going out and having a few drinks. And we had a set time. So, right, we'll take our pill at 10 o'clock because we know that it's going to last for about two or 3 hours. And by the time the club shuts at 2, we're kind of on our way down and we'd go and have a smoke and that's the night done. So that was our routine. We'd take it at 10 o'clock. We'd sit around the table, look at each other, smiling.
Did you get your dance on?
Yeah, did we ever? Yeah. I couldn't get me off the dance floor. It was a nightmare. I didn't stop. Even to the crap music, I still dance. So yeah, I'd be flat out, and then
your body just moves, doesn't it, on ecstasy?
Yeah, you do it, and everything made sense.
All the music just starts making sense. The beats
and the beat is a lot louder.
Yeah.
And what I found was because we were always having a good time, and let's say out dancing, people would clearly see we were off our tits. Oh, where'd you get your pill from, mate? So we're already sorted. So can you get me one? So no, but I'll get you one next week. And then people are asking. So then what I'm doing soon, so I'm just going to get 10 off you. Yeah, no problem. Just chuck us like the 80 quid next week on Monday or Tuesday. All right, okay, so that's fine. So I'm then going out buying it for tenors. I'm making £20. That covers my drinks. Oh, and a little bit of taxi money. So it progresses, and then it goes from like 10 to 20, and then you're buying your first 100. And you thought, well, I can't sell them in the clubs now. I was not taking 100 pills in the club. So, or I used to get them in the little bags, put them into pairs. You'd have a line of like a row of 5 in pairs, and I'd cut the inside loop of my trousers. I'd feed them around the inside belt loop of my trousers. They go all the way round. So I'd have like about 50 or 60 or 100 pills around it, and they couldn't detect it. So I'd literally just feed them out in another bag, get rid of them, and do that. So this club, in the end, we had a corner, it's called Pillhead's Corner, for obvious reasons. So what I used to do is, at the time, my friend, can't say his name, he'd come out of the army. We were living in the same sort of building at the same time. We had a partnership going, whereas I would hold the pills, he'd hold the money. But he was really good at spending the money. We'll go into that at a later point. So this club, in the end, what we did is we got it kind of fairly well sewn up, is we had the door staff on side, give them a gurner, keep them happy, because they'd gone down by then. They're like about £5 each by then. I think it's about a year or so later. The price had really started to drop in the late 90s. Bar staff, give them a pill, drinks covered. Manager, give them a pill, he'll bring them in for us. DJ, give them a pill, give the light jog a pill. Good music all night, because everyone was off their tits. And that club went from being like a sort of people drinking a lot of beer, still an element of that, to the fact that there was a lot of people taking drugs and a lot less trouble because of it. Although the other door knew what I was doing, they kind of said, better the devil we know. And I thought, well, I'm not going to take that as a blessing. I'll take it as a fact, you know what I'm doing. I won't rub it in your face. Just let me get on with it. And it's kind of an unwritten agreement. They did pull me in eventually and searched me a couple of times. I think they had to, but they didn't ever get me. So I was quite lucky. So yeah, so what I've done is I created this structure around me where I said about being a satellite on the outside of this group of friends. I was suddenly this person in the middle. And it wasn't about being a center of attention. It was about belonging to something. And when you come out of the forces, you lose that sense of belonging. That's gone, because everyone in there, you'll think the same, you act the same, everything is the same. When you're out, you're kind of isolated. So to create this kind of structure around me, made me feel a part of something which I needed. I craved for that sense of belonging again, and that's what that did.
I totally recognize that because I was in Arizona. I was a stranger in a foreign land, and I created a counterculture around me.
Yeah.
And then, that was my role.
Yeah.
Circus master, ringleader of the and about the other thing you just said, if anyone out there has seen the studies by Professor David Nutt on ecstasy and alcohol, how alcohol triggers the aggressive part of the brain, and there's a lot more violence and crime around it. Actually, alcohol is the number one drug in murder and all violent crime and all sex crime. So what you said there is completely backed up by all the studies.
Yeah, I mean, it's a case of not condoning the drugs, but what I found was when we were there in this bubble, if you like, of all of us on the same wavelength, completely wasted, having a really good night. If we had a group of lads turn up and they'd been drinking, it'd be like, oh God, here we go. You think, oh, beerheads are here. It's going to be problems.
Totally
now.
Different vibe, isn't it?
Yeah, because they're drunk and they're falling over the women and they're
grabbing women and all this.
And they're not interested because they're off their tits dancing.
Yeah.
They all look good because they're in little dresses and having a good time.
They don't want it to be a meat market.
No, exactly. So we always found that as a problem, and the door staff really good at sort of like ushering them away from us and getting them to leave us alone. So that was quite good.
The piss head vibe and the e-head vibe just doesn't mix very well.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, I used to be really discreet because I didn't want to be known for what I was doing. I didn't want to rub it in the face of anyone because we never knew the police station was opposite the club. So my drink, I wouldn't be blatant. I'd even have a bottle of beer emptied out with water in it. I would even have the patrol that I was drinking. It'd be the same bottle all night. But so I even sort of covered my tracks in that way. And I was really sort of like as sneaky as I could be, trying to hide everything,
Even the vibes on the different drugs are very, because at some of our after parties, we'd have like a ketamine room, ecstasy room, a pothead room.
Yeah. Well, but the after parties are always messy because my flat, so this is something else. The flats we lived in was chaos because when I first got out of the army, I just rented a little bedsit thing. And I won't say the name of this organization, but it's a charity set up to house ex-forces. And you rent off them, it's quite cheap. And they just finished a new development in Bristol on Bath Road. And it was 2 Victorian houses converted into 6 flats. And I think they had one house occupied at the time, and it was the middle floor. They offered me the flat upstairs. I thought, perfect. It's cheaper than where I am. It's brand new. It's fairly local to the centre of town. I'll have that. So I got in there and then started having parties, didn't I? Regularly, nearly every Saturday or every Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And downstairs moved out. I can't think why he moved out. So my mate who I did the bodyguard course with, he was working in London.
You moved him in?
I rang up. I said, mate, there's a flat empty down here. Do you want to get down? He said, because he was coming down on weekends. I said, mate, get down here. There's like 4 or 5 flats empty. He said, yeah, no problem. They moved him in below me.
Yeah.
So that was good. And then
this military strategy of the different levels of protection there.
Yeah, so my other mate who just got out, we bumped into him. He was fleecing the co-op at the time, and then he was a manager. And he was loading us up with food at the back door because we spent all our money on drugs. So I said, where are you living, mate? He said, with my mum. I said, there's some flats down here. Come move. So he moved into the flat next door. So out of the 6 flats, 3 of us occupied 3 of them. There was someone living downstairs, but the other 2 never got moved into because it was pandemonium. It was unhinged. That small little block of houses with us in there, it was just like being back in the barracks with 0 rules. So it was chaos. So the parties, as you imagine, we had these 3 flats covered between us, and there's parties going on all of these flats.
Did you ever take too much and wig out?
To the point where I thought I was going to die. We used to do this ridiculous thing, and my mum don't watch this. We'd be pilled up and we'd come back and we'd be doing different things. So that flat full of guys and girls having a good time, and poppers would bounce around because it was quite good to make the pill pick up again. I don't know why we did this, but Lucozade bottles used to be made of glass. And we had a thing, only did it a couple of times, thank God. We pour some poppers in the Lucozade bottle, heat it up with a lighter and vaporize it, and then shot blast it. And you feel like your head's going to come off and like your heart's going to explode. And we did a few of those, and I thought, yeah, that's heavy duty stuff. And then, but I was lucky. I always drew a line. No matter what time the partying would finish, I would always go to bed that night or that early hours in the morning. So it might be 5, 6 in the morning, but I'd have to go to bed. And I'd get up at 9, 10 o'clock, not necessarily feeling particularly good, but I would get up and that would give me that sense of structure. And I'd carry on with the day. I wouldn't touch drugs throughout the day. I might have a smoke, a bit of pot, but I would stay off the Class A's right through the day until the evening when it was going to be party time again.
To get to sleep coming off like speed and stuff, did you use Xanax or anything?
No, I didn't use anything at all. That was the weird thing is if I did some Temazepams once and I necked about 3 of them and I thought I'd go to KFC first because it was on a Sunday night. I'd eaten for 3 days, not eating properly. So I necked these Temazepam with diazepam, one or the other. So I had a few of those and we shot off to KFC and bought the food. Just made it back home again and woke up about a day later on with a cold KFC next to me. Never made it to eat the food. So no, that's the first time I actually bothered with that. But I didn't want to get into the sleepers because I thought, I'm tired enough. I will sleep if I can just get off the chemicals.
That's good.
So I stayed away from that.
Yeah, we were on crystal meth and sometimes that just keep us going for days.
Yeah. I hate the drawn out feeling of I know guys that can go, keep taking it. And I thought, what? And especially when we got into coke, when the pills sort of seemed really sort of tapered off at the back end of the millennium, 1999, 2000, I'd met my wife at the time. Our first son was born. I'd stopped clubbing. And that for me was kind of really the turning point in the dealing because I was no longer getting hammered for 3 nights a week. So by stopping going out clubbing, I discovered another 3 days in the week because I wasn't recovering or coming down till Wednesday. So I found out we had a Monday and a Tuesday and a Wednesday. I thought, I've not seen these days for like 2 years or 3 years. So then I thought, I'm slightly more motivated now. And then the pills seemed really, the ass end fell out the market and they went down to pence. I mean, I was buying then in 1999, 2000, I was starting to buy about 10,000 a week. And you're paying like 40p a pill, if I remember rightly. But you weren't selling for nothing. They were going out for next to nothing as well. They're going out for like 60p. You're making 20p a pill. You think, what's the point?
And was the ecstasy the same or was it diluted at that point?
Surrender. So in 97, if I recall my dates, and I've been wrecking my brain, about 97, we had a major drought. The ecstasy market just died. There was nothing. We couldn't get anything at all. It was really bad. There just weren't any pills. There was some crap going around, which was people saying slightly ketamine based, slightly trippy, wasn't the same, wasn't loved up. And I knew this because we went to a stag night in Amsterdam in, I think, about October 97, thereabouts. And I had a pill over there, and I was expecting it to be the usual rubbish. And it wasn't. It was a pink Cali, and they're very known for being really good. And I thought, well, let's wait and see. And I realised then that ecstasy is still around, MDMA is still knocking about, but clearly not in the UK for some reason. So it died off. And then the Mitsubishis were released, and that's the iconic pill which brought ecstasy back into the market and made it seem like proper pills were back on the scene again.
This is when I just started to import from Holland to America. I had like only a 5-year run, 4 or 5 year run, but it was about 97, 98 Mitsubishis.
Yeah, they changed it because people who'd been taking pills for say 6 months hadn't experienced a proper pill, or there'd be very few that had done. They've been used to these other things which are like say 20-minute, maybe slightly cat based, something in there which got you wasted but not in the right way. And these came back, the Mitsus hit the scene, and they just were taken by storm, so much so that people called pills Mitsubishis.
Yeah.
They didn't call them pills, they called Mitsus, regardless of what was on
Mitsus.
the front. Mitsus, yeah.
Double stack Mitsus.
Yeah, double dip, massive. Yeah, and that's what kind of flooded the market again. And then I think that was open to abuse because people were stamping anything with Mitsubishi sign on it, and you didn't know what you were getting. So
counterfeits always come in and spoil it, and then you got to change the press.
Yeah. So that symbol had kind of lost its way a little bit, and it was abused quite badly. So really, the pill market was dying. It was dying a death, and everyone was getting it for like 20, 30p. I thought, what's the point in getting a Class A drug 20, 30p, selling it for 50p on, say, maybe 1,000 or 5,000 at a time, you're not making any money.
Well, in America, they were going for $30, the Mitsus in the clubs.
Really?
£20+ per pill in the 97, 98 era.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's crazy, because I know back in the UK before my time, they were like 15 quid a pill.
Yeah.
And we were paying tenors. We were paying tenors in the club. And then went down to 8s, and it was 6, and I started buying like, say, the 10,000. Most of the guys like 50,000 once, so I paid like fucking.
You're going back to the late 80s, early 90s, like the White Doves.
Yeah, that's before I started taking this. Yeah, the White Doves was the big thing. That was it. It was Doves, the big fat double dip Doves. Then you had, the Callies were the one.
Yeah.
Superman. All these different ones which are going around, and you've probably seen or tried most of them. And
I had a collection.
Yeah. It'd be nice to have a little sort of like a stamp collection, wouldn't it?
I had hundreds in my collection.
Yeah.
And I ended up giving that to, let's say, a person, which is a good job, really, because if the cops, when the SWAT team finally came and they'd have got my hands on my collection, that would not have been good in court for me.
Yeah, it's like a trail, isn't it?
Yeah.
Going back the last 5 years here, mate.
Yeah. All they got was my flyers going back to like the late 80s.
Yeah.
Sasha and Groove Rider and Carl Cox.
Yeah. The big names.
Yeah.
So our day, it was things like Jeremy Healy, it was Paul Oakenfold, it was Judge Jules. All these big names, they were like gods.
Yeah.
They literally were like gods. These DJs were up in the front doing their thing. They were making it happen. They were creating that atmosphere, and we were kind of like cementing it together with that ecstasy.
Yeah.
Is what bonded everything together.
Yeah.
It made it all make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then it changed with Coke. It just changed because
sketchy, doesn't it, with Coke?
All the people that I was supplying through pills were sort of like graduating from the club scene, feeling a little bit too old for it. They were in their sort of like late 20s now, and they thought, I was going to go to a few bars and go and have a few lines. And I thought, well, I'm not really interested in that because it wasn't exciting. It was just like, it was very subdued. So I kind of like had a good pill market. And I sell a bit of cannabis as well. I was looking at the option. I thought I could start doing some Coke maybe. And a friend of mine who's done some time now and he's out of it, he's moved on. He said, well, should we start doing it? I said, well, because he had a good market for it. So I said, why don't we just press it up ourselves then, mate? Do it that way. Let's not mess around. If we're going to do it, let's do it properly. So, yeah, that's all right. So we looked at the options of getting it pressed up and making it ourselves, which we did about 2002. So that's when we sort of jumped into doing it differently. So we were getting get a kilo of a proper one up from Liverpool, funny enough. And back then it was proper kit. 2002, we were paying like 27 grand.
This Curtis Warren era.
I think it was, yeah. So I don't know who the supply source was.
Cali Cartel, I think.
Yeah, quite possible. But it was good. When this stuff was coming through, and I've had stuff from all over the UK now, and this was like, you knew it was quality. But I'd never seen more than a gram of Coke before. So when this kilo came in, and we looked at it, we thought, shit, look at that. It was like shining, it was pearlescent, it was a particular smell to it. I thought, what we've got to now recraft this. So we were turning 1 into 3, I think it was. That was the measurement at the time. And chuck, and we were getting mannitol because that's all we knew to mix. It was mannitol. We didn't have the likes of benzocaine at the time. It's like, let's just throw some mannitol in it, which we were paying something like daft, like 500 quid for a tub of mannitol. I think it's irrelevant what the cost was. It was what that money stood to make you at the time.
What did you say your cost was out of Liverpool for a kilo?
About 27, I think, 27, 28. And that was around 2002. I'd had the cheapest I got around about then was 26 and a half. And that was around 03, thereabouts. So yeah, we jumped in. So what I did is I basically went straight and just made my mate did the rest of it. I had a 9-bar quarter key. Bombed out in ounces. And then within a few weeks' time, it was kind of fluctuating. I need half a key now. And it was really messy, is the best way I can describe it, because the people involved in Coke were different to those in pills. The characters were very different. And certainly trying to get the money in was very hard work. And that really changed the dynamic of the business because it became much more ruthless. But that's not really my character. I'm more of a sort of business-minded person. And I kind of use negotiation to try and get things done rather than going in with people coming heavily with the guns and kidnappings, all that sort of stuff. So I tend to try and avoid that kind of clientele and work with people which were sensible and want to run it as a business. But it was messy. It was really up and down, really, really up and down. And I didn't really establish myself at all for quite some time because it was just so many people getting nicked, people bumping you, shutting down, droughts. It just went all over the place. It was really messy business.
I totally know where you're coming from. I had offers because we were in Arizona on the border of Mexico, kilos for like $10,000 to $15,000, but the large criminal organizations were in control of that in Arizona, in control of the meth, the coke, and the weed, and there was a lot of violence.
Yeah.
I was the new guy on the block with the ecstasy, and that ecstasy was like something that in those years they were like way behind in America. Even when one of my smugglers got busted at the airport with pills in vitamin jars, they said to her, "What are they?" And she said, "Vitamins." And they said, "Cool." Put them back in a suitcase and told her to have a nice day.
No way.
Yeah.
That's a result.
yeah. But the sketchiness around the customers as well of the coke and the crack, it's like it leads to fiending, doesn't it?
Yeah.
On other drugs, you do your ecstasy, go out, have your dance. Crack. Wild man, my best friend, co-defendant, he was heavily on crack and meth out there all the time.
Yeah.
And he gave me a can of something. He's like, "Try this crack." I was in a little pipe or something, I can't remember properly. And it was like, twinkle, twinkle, twinkle.
Yeah.
My brain went like, and then it was like, that was it was gone. I was like, what the fuck's that?
And that was it.
That was it.
Never done it.
So you never tried it?
No, I mean, I've had a fair few lines, don't get me wrong. I used to enjoy going out and clubbing the same as the next guy. But the only time I ever really experienced crack was if you're buying a key and you want to know it's right.
Yeah.
And I'd have to be in the dirty position of having to wash up a gram to get a return and check its purity.
Yeah.
And that would get thrown straight in the bin. I'd throw it in the sink. I wouldn't want it. What are you doing? I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
I don't want that. That's not what I'm about. So that'd be getting thrown away.
Yeah.
But it's the only way that's the only experience I ever had with that was by having a test. Test the coke. But yeah, it just changed. I had a few problems. I wrote about this. I can't really give too much away because it's in the book, but I was knocked back into the Stone Age financially by a bust that went on about 10, 15 years ago. I had to recover the debt, and it took a long time to get that debt paid off. And then when I finally paid off, the right thing to do would have been to get out and move on. I thought, well, I'm actually making some money now, so why would I want to get out if I'm actually doing all right? I better live a little bit first, then I'll get out. So you set your goal, don't you? You set your exit strategy, as I said about. And I kind of realised that I really liked motorsport. I won't go into that too much yet, but a lot of focusing money on cars and, having a bit of fun with vehicles and everything else. And it kind of accelerated me into this exit strategy where I want to set up this motorsport company. So I built the coke thing. It was getting bigger and bigger because at this point now I've made some good customers, made some good contacts. Everything was flowing through quite well. Had people starting out. I'd gone from the point where I was having to do all the running myself to pay this debt off, all the hard work. I was pressing it up for people. I was working a lot of hours to pay this debt, to the point where I've actually got to a point now where I thought, right, let's get a mate in to do this running for me. My Cody, my good friend I did security with. He can cover that bit. That's fine, he's got that boxed off. I'm doing the rest of it now. And they got a bit better, so let's get someone else in now. They can cover a bit more running. And it just grows, doesn't it?
Yeah,
so
delegation.
A couple of runners, a couple more runners, a few more runners. Well, let's get someone to press it for me now. I don't have to do that anymore. Let's get someone to do that for me. Let's get someone to count the money. I don't want to count it. I'll let them count the money. This is how I want it. I want it counted properly. All the heads facing the same way, correct denominations, VAT packed into 25 grand things, gift wrap it, everything. So it's transport. And I really took it to the next level is as much as I could with the cash that I was in control of. This one, of course, bumped into the other conspiracy, the other side, who are also involved in motorsport. So really, I was kind of building this. I found out that I loved driving. I always loved driving, but I did my first track day in 2009. And what I'd done is I'd set my company up called Launch Motorsport in '08. I thought I'd do a promotion on this. I'll do a photo shoot. So I looked around local, and there's loads of old RAF bases around the UK which aren't used for bases anymore. They're just private airfields, or a lot of them are just trading estates now. A place called Kemble Airfield near Cirencester. And they do F1 testing there on weekdays. So I know that they use it as a track or a circuit as such. So I got in touch and I said, look, do you rent your airfield? I just want to do a promotional photo shoot for my company going into motorsport. So yeah, you can rent this section of the airfield out, which is like a sort of bit like the Top Gear test track kind of thing. Cost you $1,000 a day. And I thought, that's all right, no problem. So basically I was part of a few car clubs, and I said, look, guys, we're doing a photo shoot today. Do you want to come down and be a part of this photo shoot? Free track day. So yeah, we'll be down there, definitely. So I got about 20 or 30 cars down at this production company, all paid in cash. But it wasn't too bad because due diligence wasn't really that effective at the time. No one was that bothered. It was kind of like creeping into a recession. So people were just glad to get the money. You know, we had the crash back in '07, I think it was, a financial crash. So people were glad to be getting paid money. And I was actually thriving at that point. So we did this track day or this photo shoot, and I found I had a really good time just bombing around on the airfield. So I asked the owner, I said, look, can I do track days here? And they said, well, we don't normally do it, but yeah, sure, just give us your money. And I got St. John's Ambulance in, I got Marshals in, I advertised it on the website, on all the different forums, and I was doing track days. I think it's about once a month I was doing them, sometimes twice a month, and people were paying me 50 quid to come down. I didn't care if anyone turned up because I just drove it up myself all day. It was me a couple of pals, a chance just to ass around on an airfield. I found out I was really good at driving. So then I started going onto the circuits, doing like Castle Combe local circuit, Silverstone, and doing track days on there. And because I had funds, I didn't care if I crashed. So when you shed that fear of crashing, you find out how good you can really be, because you don't care if you write your car, you just go and buy another one. So I kind of like, it allowed me, and I can't condone it, but it allowed me to explore something I wouldn't have had a chance to explore. And that was an ability to drive. Because I'd driven with the police and on this bodyguard course, so I knew how to drive certain aspects of defensive and defensive and tactical driving. This is different, and I found that I really enjoyed it. So I started competing in time attack. I started saloon racing. I sponsored a 3-car team in the British Drift Championship in 2010. So in 2010, so '09 I did time attack and track days. 2010 I did the same thing, but I really went semi-professional with the driving then. And then I started looking at opening the garage up. I thought, I've got a good customer base now, let's open a garage up. So the plan was in 2010, I was competing all through, drifting. It was amazing. It was just it was the best and worst year of my life. It started off so well. The garage was looking at it, we found a building, it was perfect, it needed a bit of work. Plowed a load of money into the building to get it up to motorsport spec, excuse me, which it's got to be good. And then the plan was to open it up on the 1st of October 2010, which was perfect. Really good, because we had an opening day. Financially, it wasn't easy because I'd put everything into that, and I was really starting to withdraw from selling the drugs then. I was thinking, right, I was ready to hand over to this guy that was managing it for me. So my exit strategy is, I'm going to give you this. You're going to have everything. All I want is $2 or $3 grand a month off you just to pay the bills for the garage, just to make sure I've got that covered. Then I haven't got to worry about the rent. At least that's covered. So everything's going fairly well. And then this opened in October. On the 28th of October, one of my runners gets taken down, about a key and a quarter of coke. Oh, fuck. How's that happened? Scratching me head thinking, and unfortunately, he was known for road rage, which I had experienced. I'm going to have a cough a sec.
Do you want any of your water?
Yeah, quick drink. So he's known for road rage. Preferably not while he's on the job.
Yeah.
So when he'd been arrested, I thought it was associated with the fact that he'd had a bit of an incident. There's a marker on his car. really being a bit ignorant and just hoping that that was what the case was. But either way, it was too much. I thought, no, he's been taken down. He's got over a key of coke on him. Either way, this has got to be paid for. This is a problem. So I kind of started to shut down. I thought I'm going to shut down for a while, see how it goes.
Who did you owe the money to?
The guys which were linked with the co-defendants associated with the Serbians. So although they had the bill covered, it still needed to be paid. So naturally, you're putting everything in you can to get these bills paid off. And it's not easy. When things are on top, you can't, you're not functioning because you're closing down. So you're not generating the funds. So I've opened the garage, which needed to be covering the cost of, I think, about $4,000 a month just to cover the rent and the wages, minimum $4,000 a month. You're no longer bringing that money in because you shut the business down. The garage ain't making the money because there's a recession on. You might pull in a couple of customers a day because they ain't got the money. Everyone's skint. Everything's falling out of the market. I thought, this is going to be a disaster. So this guy says to me, the one that was managing the business for me, not the motorsport, but the coke thing, he said, get going again, mate, you'll be all right. I said, no, I'm not. I said, it's too much. He said, look, I've got a runner for you. We'll do a couple of jobs. I thought, nah, I'm not comfortable with it. He said, just go on. I said, you'd be all right. I thought, because he wanted money. I said, all right, fuck it, I'll give it a go then. So he got a runner. He was someone he knew. I won't say who, because he's a co-defendant. This guy did a job for me. I said, well, we need to get someone down south, down to the villages south of Bristol. So off he goes on his merry way, and he's actually picking something up. So we needed to get something which I was going to repress, expand it, and bang it out. I thought, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Let's make some money on it. Let's not just not get a commission on it. Let's make some money. So he goes to Trowbridge. I've just said it now. He pops down to Trowbridge. It's documented. He picks up, I think it was only about 4.5 ounces of coke, but it was decent kit. Well, it should have been. He got arrested on the way back. So I didn't know never knew it was any good. So he got pulled on the motorway. So he'd done one deal, got pulled. Oh, definitely on top. So he gets remanded and he gets bailed.
Did the police say why they pulled him?
No, we didn't know. I mean, to me then it was obvious what was going on. So I rang around everyone that was left within my circle and said, look, it's definitely on top. So that was in the beginning of, at the end of November 2010. So there'd been an arrest the back end of October, an arrest the back end of November. So we're moving into Christmas now, and it's really cold, it's miserable, there's no money, and I was thinking, it's just not working out. We're getting towards Christmas, and I'm now selling off assets because I'm thinking not only is it on top, but I need to fund the garage. So I'm now selling off the cars which have been bought for the garage, bits of engine which are worth money, bits taken out the race car from 2010, sell it all off. Just keep the garage going. I've got wages to pay. I've got a wife and kids who are oblivious to what's going on. I've got to feed them. I've got to keep the rent paid there. No one knew. Yeah.
How did you keep? Hold on a second. First off, how did you meet your wife, and how did you keep her out of the loop?
So yeah, well, met my wife in the club, which I was selling drugs in. Because she wasn't local, so she just found a club with her friends and came in it. So I met her down there. I actually, when I was off my tits, I actually managed to hide it really well. So I didn't always look like I was wasted. So she didn't have a clue. Because I was doing security on the side, anything clandestine, I could say, it's just a security job. I got a contract for a few days. I got to meet a client. So I always kind of use that as a kind of cover plan, which works because it was plausible, more than plausible. So I met her in 1998. So we had our first son in 1999, second son in 2005. So keeping it hidden was relatively easy, because when you're making money, no one questions where the money's coming from. You're just having a good time, aren't you? The difficult part is hiding when you're having a bad time, when you're struggling, when you can't pay the bills, when you can't afford to buy her a present, or you can't afford to get to send the kids on a school trip because you've got no money. So yeah, that was a difficult part. That was the hard part. So it was starting to go wrong in 2010 really badly. And it was going to be a bad Christmas. I'd already known this because everything was getting sold off. She had a nice car. I said, I've got to sell your car. I don't want to sell. I said, look, the garage is struggling. I've got to sell it. And I'll go into that and say, that was something else I did as a way to try and recuperate some funds. So basically what happened is we got to December that year. Guy rang up, he said, "Oh, Rich, I know you're shut down, but it's New Year's Eve. Help me out." He's a friend, I used to do bits for him, like, mates rate sort of thing. I said, "Mate, I'm shut down. It's not happening." I said, "Look," I give him a pal's number. He ain't shut down. He's one of the guys I used to supply. Just go and see him. He said, "All right, that's perfect." So I informed them both, set it up, conspired, set that triangle up.
On an electronic device.
Yeah, rang them up. No text, but still rang them up. We were being listened to. We knew we were being listened to. Not at the time, but we knew in hindsight. So introduced them, and it was New Year's Eve. I was sat in my garage working, no customers, freezing cold. It was a disaster. And this guy that wanted it, he rang. So I can't find your mate. I can't get hold of him. I said, "Well, have you rang him?" So yeah, he's not answering. So, "Well, just keep ringing him, mate." Then the phone rings again. It's the other guy. So, "When's your mate going to be here?" I said, "Have you rang us? Well, I got a missed call." So, "Well, why don't you ring it back then, mate?" I've just had phone calls from both of these guys, haven't I, on the same day? So they've gone and done their thing. I've let them get on with it. Thought nothing of it. That night, I get a phone call at 10 o'clock. The guy that's bought the ounce, "I just got out of the cells, mate." "What's happened?" "I got arrested after I've seen your pal." So, "Oh, shit." So they were watching them straight away. So that's the last time I sold a bit of coke. Was December. Not the last time I had an involvement with selling coke was December the 31st, 2010. So that was the last bit I did. Now, to me, it's clearly that it's definitely on top. So I was just waiting now for my time. But I've got debts. I've got owe money. There's people that need debts paying. I've got a garage. I'm selling off assets. These assets aren't covering what I'm owing. They're not doing any of that because the garage is still open. So I'm having to use that to try and keep that going. I'm thinking, I got these guys breathing down my neck. And although they were really decent because for them, it's on top as well. They're getting people taken down with these other conspiracies. They're suffering similar losses. Will's guys lost a huge amount, a lot more than Will the guy was taken out with 3 kilos, straight from the Serbs. That's on credit.
Oh,
it's got maybe 150 grand straight away.
Is he still breathing?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's all right, I think. He's okay. He was inside with us.
Wow.
So they've got their own problems. Everyone knows it's on top. And even the guys, I'm presuming even the Serbs at their end have known, right, okay, we withdraw, we shut down, we see what goes. But I got bills to pay, so I'm foolishly, I think I can go into this because it was like no further action, so they can't come back in an abusive process. I had a chance to get a crop on the go. I said, this is like the chance to really save myself, to get some money and pay me debts off at least. So we found this premises which had been used by the Chinese before. Landlord was savvy, he knew the score, he just wanted a higher rate of rent. Sold my wife's car, told her I needed the money for bills in the garage. Got some money in and started funding this crop which was going on. It was a big old house as well. It's like potential for like 500 plants. It was gonna save me, and I was in collaboration with a couple of other guys, and I rang the chap up that was organising it for me, and this was in the beginning of April, and it's referred to as how's that engine development coming on that you're building for me? So, the engine's due to go back in the car soon, which meant to me it's coming down. About a week? Yeah, about a week. Perfect. Thank you very much. Week goes by, get a phone call from the guys, and they said, "Oh, we've got a problem." These are the guys, the gardeners. And I said, "What's up?" And I can hear a banging in the background. I said, "What's up?" "Yeah, they're just smashing the door in." So they'd gone out to the shop to get something to eat. They'd come back and the police had raided the house.
But they'd missed them.
Yeah, luckily they missed the gardeners. Wow. They picked them up later.
Oh.
So this house had reinforced doors on it and cage doors, like cell doors on the inside. So they took a bit of bashing. But I could hear the bashing of the door in the background. I thought, thanks, mate, I'll ring the landlord. So I rang him up. I said, "Mate, got a problem. Can you just check?" Because it was above a shop. So can you check with the shop owner just to confirm what's going on? He said, "I already know." Right, fair enough. So that went through. That was all seized and found. And I was actually arrested for that in Gloucester prison while I was on remand and questioned. So that's the last time I had anything to do with any drugs, was that crop, which never really transpired to anything.
How did you launder your money when you was balling?
So basically everything that was coming in was audited, and it was ploughed into cars. Because at the time my passion was so out of control. Because I used to race Jap cars like Evos and stuff like that. So you could put a ridiculous amount of money into a Japanese car and not even know it's in there. You know, you're talking silly money. Engine builds, 15 grand for an engine build. You know, brakes are going to be 4 grand for your brakes. Gearbox, 5 grand. You know, it starts to soak up the money.
But is that a depreciating asset, or if you crash, it's gone?
Usually, yeah. If you crash, it's gone. Yeah. You don't want to crash. But it holds if it's developed as a race car, structured correctly. It's priced differently to a modified car. If you plan to a modified car, you lose it. You lose money. But it was a crazy way because I never bothered to invest in property because I wasn't willing to put my wife and kids into a house which could be taken from them at any given moment and then wonder how the hell did this happen. I wasn't going to risk making them homeless. So we always rented, and we still do. I probably always will. Money was just basically filtered into the bank on a very, very low level just to keep things alive, keep things flowing. Because by the time I'd actually got to the point where I've been extravagant with buying cars and having a bit of fun, when it got serious with the development of the garage, that was just paid up. So all the money that was made was really thrown into the development of the garage, and there's very little left to launder because sign of the times with it coming on top, things were slowing down. So I was lucky I got arrested when I did, because it was we were doing a lot less at that time than we were, say, 6 months or a year previously. So it's very fortunate. So laundering was very minimal.
When you were partying and you ran out of drugs but you wanted to resurrect your high, did you ever try headstands?
No. We had one guy who used to get into a cupboard and I don't know how he did it now. He's quite a big chap. He used to actually climb into a cupboard in the kitchen and somehow managed to do a full somersault without jumping, but he would go in and roll over in the cupboard. And we don't know how he did it to this day. He's about 6'2".
Wow.
And from now on, I never know why he used to do it.
Because if you go upside down, the brain chemicals, it does give you a surge. Yeah. We should do headstands.
I'd saved a load of money. Trade secrets. Keep that one quiet for sales.
So at this point then, where the weed bust has just happened, has your wife said, there's a change in the earth, there's something going on, do you want to tell me anything?
Well, she could sense, because I hadn't been arrested to this point. Now, the funny thing is, I'd got the year before, back end of September 31st, 2009, we live in a little cottage just outside Bristol. And I had a knock on the door about 7:30, and it was the police. And so we've got a warrant to search the premises. Of course, my ass falls straight out because, this is it. They're here now. This is prior to all of the arrests for the conspiracy. This is going back another year. So what's this all about? And they showed me the warrant, and it said to look for evidence of unexplained wealth was the exact words. And I thought, that's a bit ambiguous. Okay, please feel free, Karen. There's nothing in the house. I was quite relieved that we just spent the money the week before. So I let them search, and there was one thing I was concerned with, and I'm quite amicable. I don't actually have a problem with the police. I got a huge respect for them because of the job that they do, and and the fact is, I would never underestimate someone who's going to take me down. I have to hold them in high esteem. So I'm being pleasant. I'm talking, and in the kitchen, I'm thinking, I've got one thing in this kitchen that could really mess me up, and it was a little tick list. So I was quite discreet of how I did it. And what I did is, on this tick list, I had a box of crackers, like the Cars cheese crackers you get, little round ones, big long square box. On the inside flaps, I'd have these names written in pencil and a number next to it. So when you closed it over, you wouldn't be noticed there. That was where I just kept my numbers. And the police are searching the house, and I'm in the kitchen, and I'm thinking they're going to get to the kitchen eventually. They're going to search the kitchen, and they might find this. And if they're doing it properly, they might find this list, and that's really going to cause me a problem. So there's an officer in there with me, obviously making sure I don't do a bunk. I wasn't arrested or anything. They just searching the house. And so I'm going to make some breakfast. He goes, yeah, please feel free. I was going to have some crackers and some butter. So I got some butter out of the fridge. And these crackers have been opened for God knows how long. They were well past their sell-by date, but the aim was to just take the box out, eat a makeshift breakfast, and bin it, get it in the bin. So I got the crackers out and trying to spread the butter on, and the crackers are crumbling because they're not fresh, and I'm just trying my best to make them. And I was, they must be out of date. Oh, rubbish. What's the missus like, eh? So I took the box out of the cupboard, scrunched it up, threw it in the bin, and then left it there. Oh. When they came in the kitchen, they just looked through the kitchen. They didn't really search deeply. Yeah. But that was the only thing in that house which could have maybe come and stuck. So I got it in the bin. And
I think I would have fucking eaten it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an option. I thought it would have tasted better than the crackers, to be fair.
All right, so when did you first realise how serious the charges were against you?
Okay, so when I was first arrested, so we'd had all these nickings. There were 3 people taken down from my lot, October, November, December. And then, of course, there was this cannabis thing, which was isolated, so I didn't really need to go into that. I was arrested on, I think it was April the 12th, 2011. And I just finished this amazing track day on the Saturday, and it was a Tuesday. I sat in my garage. I was at my table. I could look out across the reception out through the door onto the hard standing, which was where we parked the cars and cleaned them and displayed them and stuff like that. And I just caught a glimpse through the door of these 3 dark cars just roll up, and I just looked at them and thought, I wonder what that is. And in the back of my mind, I thought, I wonder. So I didn't think anything of it. And then when I saw the back one had stopped, so the 2 had obviously gone out of sight, but the back one had stopped. And it's 3 focuses. And the doors opened up, and I saw like bodies getting out of all of them. I thought, this is it. So I actually got up and walked out of the reception, and I walked out and saw these 3 cars parked up, and at least 12 police officers in plain clothes walking towards me. And I said, morning. Looked at them all, and they said, Rich Jones. Yeah. Walked up to me, and he looked at me, said, we're arresting you for conspiracy to supply cocaine, blah, 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 blah. And I thought, okay, anything to say? So we went and sat down in the garage, and then you go into shock, don't you?
Yeah.
You don't panic or soar yourself. You just go into shock because you're then processing what's going on. You're thinking, right, okay, at last I'm being arrested. It's happening. And when I first started getting involved in selling drugs, and we're going back to 95, the guy that I used to get my 4 pills from said to me, so when you get, because he'd been done before, so when you get arrested, you get done for possession, get done with intent to supply. He said, you don't want to get done for conspiracy. That's the big one. And that always stuck. So when they said conspiracy, I thought, I'm in trouble there. I know I'm in trouble. And I know I'm in a lot of trouble because the guys that I've been dealing with periodically over the years, their sentences were getting higher and higher and higher as they're getting caught. They're getting, start off with 1s, then it's 2s, then it's a 5-year, then it's a 7, then it's a 10. You're thinking, the people I know around me are doing less time, they're getting 10s and 12s. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm in trouble there. So it was when they first nicked me. I was sat in the garage.
Did you have a lawyer on standby?
No, see, this is the ridiculous thing about, I did have someone which I was, in my mind, I was ready to use because I was subconsciously getting prepared for that. So, and this is the weirdest thing because, and the daft thing I said to the police when I said, can I ring my wife and let her know? He said, I think she'll already know. And then it dawned on me that they're clearly searching the house. I thought, the kids, Mrs. This is the second time the police have been into the house. This time it's more serious. So I said, well, fair enough. So that was like, kind of felt pretty bad about that. And then they took me down to the police station and they said, do you want to get a solicitor? And the weird thing about it is I'm trying to be humble about the situation. I don't want to come across as a criminal. I thought I can style this out. I know I can do it. So they said, do you want to get a brief? And I said, well, I don't really know anyone because the brief that was recommended to me, I thought might have been a bit dodgy. I thought if I start recommending dodgy briefs, they're going to know. They know I'm guilty. They've just arrested me. They know more than I know about myself. Who am I kidding? So I said, no, just get me anyone. Then I thought to myself, no, let's get these people because they're probably going to do a better job than the duty solicitor. So I rang on the first one been in the cell, rang on the cell door and I said, hey, I've just remembered the solicitor's name. They said, yeah, what's his name? So I told him the score. And this guy came down eventually, and we sat down, and then he showed me the stuff that they can show you, the disclosure, isn't it, of what they can give you initially. And it's all like, I'm finding it all very exciting now, because I'm thinking, this is interesting. Where is it going? Looked at the names and I thought, I have recognised the names. Clearly they've been arrested and think, oh God, not is he? They've got him as well. And you're looking at all these names, think, oh Christ.
That's the worst part. Is it's in the beginning, you think it's just you.
Yeah.
And then you see all your friends getting arrested, and
I
it
know.
just spreads and spreads. And you're like, oh, every new one that gets arrested, you're more fucked.
And you're thinking, well, I know all these cells now. It's all this lot, all my mates.
Yeah.
So you're sat there thinking, oh man, I'm in the shit now. I'm really in the shit. All these boys, you know, it's brought on top. We don't know how it's come on top. We just know it's on top. And you're just waiting for the interview, aren't you? You're just waiting to get called in for interview. You do all your prints and your DNA and your palm prints and that. So that's all done. And I'm sat in that cell, and it's a hot day. It's April. It's hot. I'm trying to look out the window, and I'm just kind of like, I'm not thinking I'm there, but I'm not there. My head's not in. I'm just thinking, right, just get me head in the game, ready for this interview. So you get into you see your brief, and he gives you this disclosure of the names. He says, right, you ready? Do you want to go in? I'll let them know we're ready. And they're thinking, what, we're going in now? It's like pre-stage nerves, isn't it? You think, this is it, I'm going in. So he knocked on the door, yeah, we're ready. And he made sure, you ready for this? What do you want to do? I said, well, I got nothing to hide, mate. I'll I won't go into a comment yet. I don't want to be coming across like someone who's a known criminal. So crazily enough, on the first interview, I kind of like answered some of their questions, but nothing incriminating towards anyone else. I was stupid to think that I was clever enough
to
be able
dangerous.
to beat that. Really dangerous.
Yeah.
So they're asking questions, and my plausible story in my head was like, everything's focused around the garage, around the motorsport. Who's this guy? Why is that guy's car there? That's because he's getting his car fixed. And he was. Everything I did illegally had a legal parallel to it. So if I knew someone who I was selling coke to, I would be servicing their car. If I knew someone that was buying bits off of me, I'd be taking them on a track day. So I had these crazy parallels. And in my mind, I thought that would be plausible. So I went through the whole thing. Didn't drop anyone in the shit except for myself. They didn't ask for any other names. They had the person they wanted to get. And then we're sat there, and they finished the interview after, it was only about 3 hours. It wasn't too bad. And the coppers they were all right. No malice. The guys were pretty decent. They were, once the tape was switched off, how would you go? Is that all right? Everything okay? Do you want to get a coffee? Yeah, I'm fine. I'll have a coffee and having a chat. We're going to go and find out what we're going to do now. And this, bear in mind, it must be about 12:30 now. After 12 midnight, maybe later than that. And my mind's now thinking, what's next? I'm presuming I'm going to get remanded in custody. So they came back and they said, stranger things have happened. What's that? I said, you're being released. I went, no way. I'm getting bailed. They said, yeah, you're getting bailed. We don't understand why. Now, whether they knew, I presume they do know, that this other investigation, Op Berlin, this was Op Kestrel, is still going on. They haven't finished it yet. They haven't yet arrested me. Well, they haven't started arresting the co-defendants. They've taken people down, but they haven't got their main man. So I'm presuming they're releasing me now to see what my movements are going to be. What's happening. So they bailed me. So of course I rock up. They dropped me off back home again, and I went into a wife who was somewhat miffed about the fact that I've been taken away.
What was that conversation like?
Really odd. Well, to be fair, it was like 1 a.m, so I just got my head down and got to sleep, and I had to explain to her the next day. I said, I don't know what's going on. I said, what did I use? I said, think something to do with the garage. I think something dodgy in the garage, like money laundering. I said, they're trying to, and I tried to come up with some plausible reason. I just talked shit just to try and get off my back and just not, I suppose, not involve her too much. So I did my best. I don't think it worked. I just did my best. So I went back to work the next day. I opened up the garage, got the mechanics in. So, yeah, we're all good. And I sat there and I thought, that's it now. I've been bailed until, I think, May now to go back. So I sort of got through that month, and I went up and seen my Cody's up in Cheltenham. And I said, I've been nicked. I said, be careful, mate. Just be really careful, because I could go there because I was taking up car parts. We were trading legitimately anyway, so there's no reason I wouldn't be there. So I remember we had a rolling road in there, like a dyno, and they're really noisy. I said, let's go and have a chat. So we went into the room above the dyno, which is really noisy. We sat there and talked. I said, mate, be careful. It's on top. I've been nicked. They're coming for you. They are coming. You've lost the guy on the M4. You've lost Will. They're coming for you, mate. They're coming for you. They took the whole lot down for me. Everything's gone. There's no money. We're all done. So just be careful. So another month goes by. I went and signed my bail. They charged me then with conspiracy. So what, you wait for your pending court dates. So that was in May. And then June, big thing in the news. Another massive arrest of when Will and Lar, I can say his name because we're open anyway. Everyone gets nicked, the whole lot. That was back, I think it was in June at some point. I think mid-June, I don't know the exact date. I knew it was happening, he knew it was coming, but they all got remanded. They all got banged up, and I thought, Christ, they really wanted them because they were the other end of the chain. And I'm looking at all the forums. We're involved with a lot of forums for the car clubs, for the track days, for the racing series. We did a mass race series in 2010 with their company where I sponsored it. That was huge, so we're kind of, all these people that have been well behind it, dirty drug, I knew they're at it, where, all the slate and all the crap starts getting thrown around once you've been arrested. So I'm privy to this thinking, God, poor buggers, I've kept mine low key so far. So another month goes by and I sat in my garage and it's on the 29th of July. And then another couple of cars pulled up outside the garage and I thought, what are they back here again for? And they walked in, it's a whole different set of police officers. I thought, I don't recognise you guys. And they introduced themselves as Gloucestershire Soccer. We're arresting you for conspiracy to supply cocaine. I thought, so not again. I said, even in Somerset got me. I said, this is a mistake. I said, nah, this is rubbish, mate. I said, this can't be right. I said, no, you're getting arrested by us now. But how does that work? I said, same charge or different charge, same circumstances, but we're arresting you. Oh, crap. So off I went to Gloucester in the back of their car. And I can't believe this is the second time. So I'm being taken up the motorway now, not down the motorway to Bristol, up to Gloucester, to their police station. And in I go, and I called me brief again. So I've been nicked again. He said, yeah, I've got word. They've told me I'm on my way. And he said, this time, mate, don't say a fucking thing. He said, what do you mean? I said, what, no comment? He said, no, silent. Yeah, right, okay, no problem. Follow his instruction. So we got into the interview and sat in front of these two DCs. One of them was actually decent. The other one, he was very arrogant. He was a younger DC. And I think he's more like a case of a cat that's got the cream. And I'm not going to disrespect him because he did a good job, but I think it was his first investigation that he was heading that. So he was very, very arrogant in how he went about things, which made me feel much better about not saying nothing to him. Because then they were under the assumption that I was going to talk. Because even in Somerset, I just told him a fucking life story. I told him, yeah, ex-forces, give me a break. So I sat down and he said, right, confirm your name. Looked at him. And he looked at his colleague. He said, your name? I just stared at him like that. I didn't move. And I thought, here comes my interrogation practice training now.
Wow. So
I just looked at him like that. And he said, he looked again at his colleague. He said, is he going no comment? My brief just went out. I looked at my brief for that. I smiled. and he went, he deflated in front of me. And he said, date of birth. And he started going through a list of questions. And I just sat there and it was so satisfying because I thought, I just don't want to go through this all again. Yeah. So I picked up this thing. I look at him, look at the other guy, it was DVD this, I look at the camera. And all through the interview, you see me just look at him, look at the camera. And that was all I did for about 3 hours.
Good for you.
And I didn't say a word.
Arrogance is something that can be exploited in the opposition anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. And I felt very satisfied about that. It wasn't because I wanted to be a twat. It's just because I felt that at this point, I'd had enough. I've been arrested once already, and this time I wasn't going to play the game. So yeah, we went through that. I didn't say a word, and it was great. And my brief just looked at me and said, well done. And he actually, he showed me something on his notepad. I don't know what he said, but I just laughed. And that annoyed him even more because the only noise I made was when I chuckled.
Yeah.
So when they went out of the interview, when they shut it down, they said, "We thought you were going to talk." He said he went comment on the last interview. I said, "Yeah, but I didn't know the names on that list. I didn't know any of those people. You're talking Serbians, mate. So I don't know who these people are. I don't know. I'm not going to say nothing." I said, if I, even in Somerset, it's a whole different kettle of fish. I didn't know these people, so I left. I kept my mouth shut on that one, and it was obviously the right thing to do. So they then bailed me, weirdly enough, and I thought, I've got bailed again. So off I went back home again. And of course, I'm now feeling invincible, aren't I? Because everything that's happened in the past. Well, I just seem to be getting away with this. This is fine. So off I go. Went home. My wife didn't know about it because they didn't bother searching the house again. They searched the garage again. It's a big premises to search, but they had another good look. And after that, I went back, opened up again the next day and carried on as normal. But I had to answer the bell the following week to get my phone back. I just got another phone replaced after the first arrest. I said, "Can I get my phone back?" They said, "Come back next week, we'll do that for you." So I went back the following week and I borrowed my mechanic's van, drove it, chucked it on a pen display, went in there, and I said, "I'm on a pen display, how long are we going to be?" He said, "Well," he said, "you're probably better off ringing someone to collect your van, we're going to remand you." I said, "What?" He said, "We're going to remand you." I said, "Why didn't you tell me that?" "Well, because you wouldn't turn up." I said, "But I could have had a chance to say goodbye to my missus and kids this morning at least." So, "No, we're going to remand you." "Well, you
bastards.
Yeah, you bastards. So I rang the missus and I said, "I got some bad news." I said, "I was arrested again last week and they're going to remand me in jail." Of course, that's hard, really hard.
Man, how did she react?
Upset, tearful, because we've gone through a lot, and I think she rode out all those bad times with me, unknowingly what was going on in the background. So she lived that feast and famine when she didn't know what was going on. She didn't have to. Maybe in the back of her mind after the disruption over that year and the finances changed, she might have had an idea. But no, it wasn't an easy phone call. So they stuck me in the cells and they took me to Gloucester Magistrates Court, where I sat in the cells all day with some lad who'd been on the run, and he was suffering with a few hygiene issues, shall I say. So the judge and the magistrates, clearly they can't deal with that. It's too big for them. So they said, "We're going to remand you until we get to Crown." So this was the 4th of August, 2011. Remanded into Gloucester. So that was my first time into prison then. And that was it. In I went in Old Victorian Jail. And you're kind of like mesmerised, you're shell-shocked, but immediately I went in there, I switched my mentality to a squaddy mentality of that kind of like, right, I've done this before. I've got to my regiment. It's a very stag environment, a lot of men. It's going to be a battle order of some kind. I said, it's going to be whatever's through those doors. I shall see what happens. But luckily it was about 7 o'clock at night, so they're all banged up. So we got taken on to the induction wing, which was quiet, nothing going on. Looking around, so 3 landings. So I thought, it's just how it looks on the telly. But the TV doesn't tell you about the smells or the echoes or the eerie silence when you move on to a wing when it's quiet. They said, "Well, do you want to share it with this guy?" I said, "Well, I don't smoke and he smokes." I said, "But rather than him, than someone else that I don't know." So I go in with him. So we paddled up together, and all I remember was the thing that he did was he was coming off of alcohol. So they prescribed him some Librium. Now, because the meds were shut, they had to give it to him through the hatch, through the door. And he went to the hatch, and he's an old hat. He's been in and out a lot. He knows how it works. And they passed him this medication, and he cheeked it. He did showed him his mouth, but he stashed it. And I didn't know at the time. So the healthcare assistant's gone. And he's sat and he's looking at me and he's doing something on the unit. I thought, "What are you doing, mate?" He goes, "I'm just going to crush this up." I said, "Why?" "So I'm going to sniff it instead." So "Why?" He said, "Because I get hit off it." "Why?" He said, "Because that's what I want to do." I think, "Oh, right, okay, no worries, mate." So remember, the first thing I saw was him crushing up this pill, whatever it was, and then sniffing it with a bit of old rolled up paper. And I thought, welcome to prison, Rich. So it's an old jail, bunk beds, mattresses like this, so you're like on a hammock, aren't you? pillars are non-existent, like a slab of rubber and an old hospital sheet, which is about the size of a napkin because everyone's using them for lines. So it was like trying to sleep under a tea towel with an old the whole the blankets with the holes in them, like the mesh blankets. That was I was relieved the fact there was a toilet in there and a TV. I thought, well, this ain't so bad, is it? So my memory of the first night was he drank a lot of tea and he smoked a lot and he pissed a lot. And my head was right by the toilet.
Oh!
So you imagine that, it's going again. All I could smell is his urine.
Did you have to give him a no flush instruction because you were trying to sleep?
Well, I'd rather he flushed because he drank that much tea. It was quite strong.
Yeah.
The flavour, the smell, I could almost taste it. It was that strong. So my first night was passive smoking and inhaling the fumes from his urine, which was great.
Because I always sold it with people who had prostate problems.
Yeah.
And we'd have to have that discussion as to whether, do you want me to just piss and not flush the can?
Yeah.
Or would you rather just, so I don't wake you up? And I'm like, yeah.
Well, that was funny, sir, because when I got into my next prison, the guy I showed with had prostate problems and he was up all night just dripping. And I thought, and he would spend hours on the toilet trying to have a piss. And I thought, well, are you going to start or finish, mate? And he could even, what are you doing, mate?
Did you have to figure out how to make earplugs to sort of drown it out?
Yeah, do you know what? In the end, I just put my head under my blanket because he was smoking that much. We paddled up for three weeks. We moved up onto the freezing and it was really hot. And we could have seagulls doing their thing every morning because it's right by the docks. And he didn't stop smoking. So 3 weeks I always put my head underneath the thing at night because it was that much smoke, was that heavy. But the funny thing is, sorry, go on.
So did you have to have a discussion with him to stop smoking at some point? I
said it's too much. Yeah. I said I got to move pads. So I got to get a different pad. I can't stand the smoking. It's doing me head in.
Yeah, it causes a lot of fights where I was at with non-smokers, smokers.
It's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah.
Well, the first morning, I got out of the pad in the morning on the first day in jail. Of course, the wing comes alive, doesn't it, in the morning? So I've gone out and I need a shower. I'm stinking. I've been in the courts all day in my same clothes. I need to have a shower and get into I've got these ridiculous prison tracksuits which don't even fit. So I walked into the shower. I had a scrub. And as I'm walking out, I see my Cody, Lawrence. And he looked at me, he went, oh my God. We just had a massive hug. He said, what happened? We had a good old chat. He said, look, can't stop now. We've got to get everything sorted. I've got to do your menus and everything else. So we'll meet in the chapel. Why do you want to meet in the chapel? Because that's where we'll meet. So I thought, all right, I'm not a religious person. All right, I'll go down to the chapel and meet you then. So that was on the Sunday morning, obviously. So they called down the chapel. Anyone for chapel? So I went down there and I got in and I went in and he wasn't there. And it was the most depressing hour and a half of my life because I'm in prison. And no disrespect to anyone with any faith, but I'm in a church, in a prison, in a church with no one I know, and I don't know why I'm here. And that's when it realised to me that I am in a whole different environment now. This is just not for me. So I eventually bumped into him and I saw him and Will were paddled up together, and both smoking like troopers. But we're on different floors. So what happens is in Gloucester when the association on one night they would open up one set of floors. On the other night, they opened a different set of floors. So you'd have alternate association. So what I found was these guys were on a different night to me. So I'd have to spend half the night looking for their flap, chatting to them through their door, gassing. But when it comes to exercise, we're all out together. I remember then there was myself, Will, Lar, the other guy was, and the Serb were on a different wing. I think the other guy was still in Wood Hill. The one who got pulled with the 3 keys, he was in Wood Hill because that's where he's remanded. It was local for him. The Serb lad, he was on a different wing. He was working on the servery, but I don't recognise his face from the photographs. Well, that's the other end. So yeah, that was a weird one because none of us had been in prison before. It was all first offence, So we were and we were just scratching our heads, thinking, "How has this come about? How have we got arrested? How did we fuck up? Where has it come from?" And we were all kind of speculating about how it's come about and why I've been arrested. I mean, in hindsight, I've got a good idea why. I know now there were informants on my end, from my end of the market. There were informants involved, several. 2 that I'm pretty sure of. One of them's inside now, and a couple that I'm not so sure about, which anyone doesn't get nicked with your organisation is under the spotlight, aren't they? There's one guy I know he's not, we speak, and I know he's definitely not him. But there are others which you have to think, well, they have to be suspect. There's a lot of conspiracies going on within our circles about how it's come about, but the truth is there are some informants involved. There has to be that level, usually is, normally.
So you had to go back to court?
Yeah, so the process then, the aim was trying to get bail. So this was through August, and during that time, there's all these riots kicking off around the UK. If anyone remembers, there was a huge amount of riots going off in London, I think Birmingham, maybe Bristol, and I don't know why they were rioting, but they were. And the police, my brief said, let's wait for the riots to finish. They're going to need some room in the local jails. Then we'll go judge in chambers and try and get you bail. But yep, fine. I've gone through 4 weeks on remand. I was getting into me jail time now, and I got onto a course. I was doing a cookery course. Not because I wanted to learn to cook, because I got to eat something that wasn't the shite that was coming from the kitchens.
What was the shite?
Oh, it was horrendous. It was all, in Gloucester, they still had the old trays, which they've banned, the metal trays. It was just overcooked, stewed, steamed. It had been spent too long on the hot plate. To be fair, Gloucester food was much better than some of the other jails I've been to, which is really bad. But the food we got to cook on this cooker course was fresh. We got to make a lasagna or something else, and you made it yourself. So I was having a really good time. I was enjoying this cookery course. And I went back to the wing phone and rang up my wife. I said, just been cooking. She said, have you heard the news? I went, what's that? I said, you've got bail. What do you mean? She said, you've got bail. This is on the 8th of September. I said, so I'm still here. I said, no, it's been granted, but they just need to get your passport into a police station, and then your mum and your dad are going to put up a surety. They don't have to give the money over, but a surety of $7,500 each, and we got to put up 25 grand. And then the amazing thing was a couple that came to my track days. They put up 10 grand. They didn't have to do that.
Wow.
They actually said, no, we'll cover the other 10 grand for you. I thought, wow, how nice is that? Didn't even really know them that well.
Wow.
Did a few events. So they covered the balance. My mum and dad covered 15 between them. They covered the other 10, which I'm really grateful for that. So that got me out of jail. So I was released the next day. Yeah, so I was released on bail on the 9th of September.
3 bails?
Yeah, so my dad picked me up, and I said, all right. I said, all right, Dad. Yeah, so what do you want to do? He said, McDonald's, please, Dad. I want a fillet of fish. So we went. So I was bailed then, and that kind of then opened up the door for those of us that weren't bound to rights, i.e. the ones which weren't caught with any goods in hand. Lawrence was trying to get bail himself. Now, because I've been given bail, that gave him grounds for bail. His surety was much higher than mine, so Laurie got bail about a month later. So the next thing then was we were given conditions, curfews on a tag, 7 till 7. The garage for me then was shut down. That was gone. Yeah, the business was collapsed, folded. It was just left. I had nothing, lost everything, and that's the nature of the game, isn't it? You come out with nothing. So, yeah, that's when you start looking at the process of damage limitation. You assess, right, what have I lost? How bad is this? What about money that's owed? Well, we ain't got to worry about that because everyone that's owed money to is inside. So that kind of unwritten rule is like, well, look, you're going to do your time, mate. You're looking at your pleas. You're looking at what have they got on me. So you start looking at your plea case management, your initial hearings at the courts. And the first one I think was in November. And I remember turning up to this court hearing. I was there. Lawrence was there. The guys that had been off of my conspiracy, nobody was remanded. They were all there. We're not allowed to speak. We're sat looking at each other, just smiling, just shaking our heads, and it's terrible, isn't it? We were going into the courtroom, and we're all deciding what to do. And one of the guys from mine, when his house was searched, we didn't know all the details of anyone else's searches. We didn't know what's going on. And myself and my Cody on my left, and there's a few of us in there, and we're stood next to the other guy. And I can't say his name. He got not guilty then, so I can't really say his name. Of course, he was innocent. When they were reading out the charges of everything else, when they read out the charge of this chap's house, they reeled off a list of all this different ammunition that was found. And we're thinking, well, like this, looking at me, and I was looking across at him thinking, what have you been doing? But it wasn't what it sounded like. His late father was ex-forces, and it was just an empty case of this. An old 9mm. It was individual rounds, which we call them buckshee rounds. When you're in the forces, if you lose a round, you get charged up to a month's wages. So when you're on the ranges, you steal a round, you nick one, and you stash it because they're worth a weight in gold. At least we're worth at least a month's wages. So you hold on to these spare rounds. You know, you're not supposed to make a declaration that you haven't got anything on you, but you do. So these were just spare rounds that his old man had just accumulated. They were old. They were probably out of date. Wouldn't work. So of course, he's ran off these rounds. We're thinking, my God, what's he into? So we're kind of like edging away from him a little bit. I don't want to be associated with you. So we've then looking at all of our pleas, and the majority of us that weren't caught with anything in hand, which is most of us, we're going to go not guilty. You know, despite what the advice was, well, not guilty. But poor me, I've got 2 charges, 2 conspiracies against me, and this created the conundrum for the courts of like, how do we proceed with this? Because we've got 2. How do we proceed with Mr. Jones? He's got 2 cases now. Do we go for where there was a severance or joined there? Do we run 2 different trials? And Mr. Jones appears on both trials and has a good old scrap on both trials and see how we get on. Or do we have 2 counts on one trial for him at the risk of confusing the jury with 2 different counts? So what they did in the end was we maintained innocence to the point where we ran a trial, and we were turning up on bail. And in the end, they decided to run 2 trials, but they put me on the trial with the Op Berlin guys, i.e. Williams' lot and Lawrence's. And we ran the trials where I ran 2 counts of conspiracy. So count 1, which would be the Op Berlin, count 2 was Operation Kestrel, which was mine. So they basically delivered the trial talking about both conspiracies on the trial, i.e. the bigger picture, which was required to get the conviction on me because they needed to find out strategically where I fitted into that conspiracy. Am I part of Op Berlin, conspiring with them, or am I a customer of Operation Berlin, conspiring with my guys? So that's how it was. It's quite complicated. So yeah, it was a difficult process because you've got guys which are remanded, guys which have pleaded guilty because they've been found in possession, and it was damage limitation. And when I took my turn to stand in the box, it was one of the most exciting times I've had because it was like, this is it now. Everything hinges on this. I found it really, and I did okay. It didn't help out in the end, but I did okay considering the evidence that was against me. Because what you don't see when you're sort of building up towards the trial is what they've really got on you. And when you first see that jury bundle, and you see like the evidence which is given to the jury and the whole presentation of everything they've got, all the cell site analysis and the color charts and the surveillance photographs put in there next to it, and how they cherry pick all these phone calls to make it look like it's all clandestine, and you think, wow, they've really got us fucked, really in a lot of trouble now. So yeah, you kind of like, that's when you think, I should have gone guilty because this maybe look really bad. You know, you see your phones that they attribute towards you, where you say, well, I accept that I had a second phone because this phone was my clean phone, i.e. from my company. This phone was my spare phone for my friends and family, or my friends, you know, but why was that phone thrown away after this arrest? You know, all this sort of stuff. So yeah, you see that and you think, well, it's too late to put a plea in now, to see out to the end, you know, so you battle it out.
How was it with your missus during this period?
It was stressful because my mental health has never been that good since going to the forces anyway. I've always had bouts of depression and anxiety. So, you know, I was kind of fighting with my own demons inside emotionally. And the weird thing about my missus being I suppose the testament to how good she is, she focused on our kids. She allowed me to focus on our kids because I knew that, you know, that sense of pending doom. You think, well, I'm going to probably go away in a few weeks' time whenever the trial finishes in 7 weeks' time. It was 7 weeks. I'm going to go down. So really, she said, well, look, if you go away, you're potentially going to get a few years. So it's important that we maintain normality for the kids, and we just don't let them know that we'll worry about that when we get to. And that was a very strong thing to do, because she kind of held on to that strength to make sure the kids, because my youngest was only 5 at the time, the oldest was like 12 or 11 or 12. So it's really difficult on them, and it hasn't. We haven't come through this unscathed, I'll put it that way. So it was difficult. Very, very difficult. But that's the selfish thing, isn't it? When you're involved in that world, you don't think for a minute, how's it going to affect my kids? You think, I'm okay, I'll be fine, but you don't see the collateral damage.
So you think you've done good on trial, then you see the evidence against you, and how long does the jury take to make a decision?
It's the longest 3.5 days of my life. So they've gone out to deliberate. And of course, we've all done our best to try and create our defence. We're thinking, we've given them. Lawrence was in the stand for about a day and a half. He was in there for a long time. Vlad was in there for a long time. We've all tried to deliver our defence as best as we can. And those 3 days are horrible, because you might get a moment where the jury have got a question. They might want to rephrase something. So you kind of like, you're hovering around the court all day, and you're waiting for, please, everyone in the court, 5 in the case of Mr. Jones, please return to the court. You think, oh my God, they made their mind up, this is it. Of course, we've all got our bags packed and ready to go down. So we're like, it's like the departure line to Bristol Airport. We're just sat there with our bags in the holding room. And we go back out and say, we just got a question. Oh, this isn't it. So we keep going. So in the end, we knew the problem we had was one of the jury was going on holiday on the 19th of May. So, which I think was a Saturday. It was a Saturday. So we knew, the judges said, well, no matter what, we'll be done by the 19th, i.e. the Friday. We'll be done by the Friday, because we know you got to go on. We'd already lost one jury member because he'd made a racial slur against one of my co-defendants. So he was kicked off.
Oh dear.
We're down to 11. Couldn't go down to another one. So we knew that we couldn't afford to lose another jury member, because it was going to mean introducing a new jury, retrial, however that works, I don't know. So we knew that whatever happens, by the 18th, we're going to have a verdict. So yeah, they came in on it was me and my wife had just gone to get something to eat for lunch. The court was adjourned. We got some lunch on the Thursday, just around the corner. And we came back in, and I think about 2:00, 2:30, said, can everyone return? The jury, that was it. So we sat there, 5 of us, and there was Serb, Lar, me, two defendants on the left-hand side. And I said, how do you find, and I would give them how do you find so-and-so of count 1? This was the count 1 first. All stand up, and you've got the public gallery across to the right. Guilty. You see his wife completely go to pieces. Of no fact, sorry, his wife had been bailed, so I don't think she was there. Lara was next to me. How do you find so-and-so? Guilty. And his whole lot just lost the plot. How do you find Mr. Jones? Not guilty. I was like, at first I prayed, like, yes, count 1, not guilty. Get in there. So it goes across to the other 2 guys, not guilty, not guilty. I thought, wow, how do you find Mr. Jones? Count 2, guilty. Like, oh, fuck. It's like a Homer moment. I was like, yeah, don't. It's really bad. And then I look across at my wife, and she's like, I can see her eyes fill that. And I think she said I spoke to her afterwards, or once she visited, said she actually passed out in the gallery, which was bad. And then you got that really, really sad moment where the judge says, right, those of you not guilty, off you go. Thank you for your time.
Some were able to completely leave.
Yeah, they walked out that way through the sort of door you walk into, out to the freedom, and the rest of you take them down. Oh, crap. So there's me and Lawrence and Vlad. Just off we go down through the back door now, not the way we came in. And I looked across, and my wife had sort of waved at that, and I'd already, my mentality, and I just started to change it straight away. I thought, well, I've been in before, did just a few weeks on remand, I know where I'm going, but this time I'm going into Bristol. It's a different jail. So we went down the back into the cells again. Thought, I'm familiar with this, I'm okay. And Lawrence is just like, head in his hands. Vlad don't really give a toss. He's been on remand all the time anyway. He's just getting on with it. And then we're waiting for the bus then. To get us off to Bristol, to be remanded in Bristol. So Vlad had moved from Gloucester to Bristol prison. So I think all of our co-defendants which were involved were now moved to Bristol to consolidate them ready for sentencing in a few weeks' time. So we got into Bristol prison, and it was late. Now Lawrence, I think, went on to a different wing, went to A wing, and again I just flicked into that sort of veteran mentality. And they asked a question when you get into the admissions, when they're running you through reception, say all the normal healthcare needs. So have you served in the forces? Yeah. Oh, who are you with, mate? And these guys think, oh, tank regiment. And you think, oh, half these guys in here are ex-forces.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of staff will move on to some form of security. And a lot of them have been in the forces to some point. I think that's got to count for something at some point, hasn't it? That's ex-forces, blah, blah, blah. You get a bit of food, you get taken onto the wing. This time it was G wing, 4 landing side, bigger than Gloucester. And I'm thinking, it's a big old place, this. I've heard a lot about it. I drive past it most days going to work, look up at and I look down the road, look at the job, thinking, one day I'm going to be in there. It's inevitable. Here I am, I'm in there at last. So into the cell with this guy with the prostate problem. He's up all night pissing. And then the weird thing is, the next day, it was a Friday, nice day, and I thought, I'm going to get some exercise. They called exercise, I'm going to get some fresh air. So I've gone out, and there's only 3 of us on the yard, and there's a couple, 3 other lads, and I'm walking around the yard. I've done Gloucester Yard, it's small, you walk around in an anti-clockwise direction, just taking the fresh air, and there's this one guy's chatting to me. So what are you in for? So I've just been done for conspiracy to supply coke. He said, yeah, I'm on remand waiting for that. So he's telling me all about his case and that. And I thought, right, I said, I don't know, mate. He said, what are you looking at? I said, I don't know. He said, maybe could be 10 years. I'm not really sure. He said, you didn't want to get 10 years for that. He said, what were you caught with? I said, I wasn't caught with nothing. No money, no drugs. He said, well, how are you going to get 10 years? It was conspiracy, mate. Leading role. No, I don't believe you. So he just peels off. He starts chatting to this other guy. And then I keep walking around. He comes and joins me again. He goes, yeah, well, I didn't do my thing anyway. It's just all rubbish. I said, yeah, whatever, mate. And we left it at that. And then I'm on the wing. And then the following day, I'm walking around, I think I'm going to get something to do the menu for the canteen, or sorry, for the servery. And it was looking at me really weird. And I'm thinking, this ain't right. It's a bit odd. And then I was out on exercise on the bigger yard. And then people just staring at me as I'm walking past. And thinking, what the fuck's going on here?
They think you're a cop.
Yeah. Yeah, they thought I was undercover, didn't they?
Yeah.
Fucking idiots. So I was walking along, and then the weirdest thing was, there's a guy outside with a member of staff. He's on litter pick. That's one of my codees. I don't know him, but I recognise his photograph, or his face from his photograph on the interview. And I said, I've met him once in the past. I said, oh, mate, come over. He said, oh, when did you get in? I said, I got in last night, or so 2 days ago. What wing are you on? So I'm on G wing. So get yourself onto B wing. We're all on B wing. So what do you mean we're all? So we're all on B wing. Right, okay. So I spoke to the staff, said, like, get me on B wing. I said, yeah, we'll wait till a space comes up. A week went by. All these guys are just like avoiding me, looking at me there. And so I thought, I didn't know they thought I was undercover. Didn't know this.
Not a good situation.
No,
to be in.
It's not good. So eventually I got over on the B wing, and it was like, I never felt happy to land on a wing. Not because of coming off a G wing, but I walked in there, and it's a guy, I won't say his name, and he's downstairs. He looked at me and he smiled. I said, fucking hell, it's been a long time. It's been like 15 years since I've seen you. It's the guy that got me the job working with Oasis in Nebworth, the one that's serving up all their coke.
Wow.
He's on remand. And I went, fucking hell. He said, look, and he's a unit. No one fucks with him. He's a big old piece of work. And straight away I thought, I'm all right now. He said, yeah, get you up here. He said, we got you a room sorted out. Because Vlad, the Serb who was there, he moved on to a different wing because he was going to get a job in admission. So he moved. So you can have Vlad's cell down on the ones with us. It was on Spurs. So you had I think it was 8 cells on this, and it was on B wing. So it was a smaller wing. It was better, single cells. So I walked onto this wing and looked around, and I saw the guy got done from the motorway, 3 keys. He's like, oh, mate, how you doing? The cell next to him, thought, where do I know you from? Oh, yeah, I used to chuck him coke down in Oxford. He's on remand for something else. The other guy that had, the litter picker, he was on another cell. So, and the guy that I used to do security with, he was in another cell. So on that spur, there were 4 of us that I knew out of the 8. And I felt great. I thought, this is fine. They got me a job straight away on the servery. So I was eating well. So then for me, I thought, so right, this is how it works. This is how jail really is. You know someone, you get a little touch, and it changes the dynamic of the whole thing.
Completely. There's nothing better than someone recognizes you and you're like, yeah, and then they tell everyone, yeah, he's all good.
Yeah, exactly that. And even when some of the guys from G Wing came across onto B Wing, and I was taking the names of the food orders, so they say, who are you? Cross the name, I'll say, you're on this, that, and that. And this guy would look at me. I remember his name. His surname was Thor. He had it tied on the side of his neck, and he had a real issue with me. And he said, you're undercover, aren't you? I said, no, I'm not, mate. And I was sat next to my co-defendant. He said, no, he's not, mate. Yeah, he's definitely undercover. So go and ask the guys on the servery. And there was like all the people that I know. And they said, he's definitely not undercover. I've been working with him for years. If he is, he's really good at it, or really bad at it, because you know what he's doing. So, but he still wouldn't have it. He was that ignorant that he'd made his mind up that I was undercover. But that's the paranoia you live with on remand. So we were there for 5 weeks waiting for sentencing. So that was you're just waiting, and I'm trying to put it together in my head. How long am I going to get? I'm looking at the guidelines, looking at the roles and the categories and everything else, and I'm thinking, well, do you think catch us with that much coke? Like maximum 1.5 kilos, maximum. I'm thinking, right, okay, but then I think, well, did they take into consideration purity? Did they go by volume? Did they look at an overall picture? And I'm thinking, well, I'll put myself in category 2. I am leading role. Category 2, right, that's 10 to 13 years. No, 9 to 13 years. I thought, all right, I'm going to get about 11 or 12 then. They're going to take a bit off being a squaddy. They give me a result. So in my head, I'm thinking about 11 years-ish. So we go for sentencing. On the first one was on the 22nd of June. We get there.
Was your missus at that one?
Yeah. As was my dad and everyone else. And my friends. We got there and it's we have to adjourn this one because we ain't got the pre-sentence reports through. So it was adjourned for another week. So we went back again the following week on the 29th. We got in there and then we were this first time we were all sat together now. People that had pleaded guilty but weren't remanded. There were people there. All the conspirators. So there were like, I think there was all of us. I think the whole 13 of us were there. Bar one. One guy did, the one that got done on the New Year's Eve, one of my lot, he'd done his time and finished. He was like done and dusted, license completed the lot. He was finished. So he wasn't there, obviously. There were 12 of us in the dock. And we were lined up. And they're writing off sentencing now. And they're looking at these, they're going through the whole conspiracy. And the judge doesn't say, you're having 10 years, take him down. He reels off a load of spiel as to why he's come to this conclusion and why he's come to this length of sentence. And you're thinking, well, he's going to get to me. And then he did all the boys from Berlin first. My mistake, sentencing was split because the second trial hadn't happened till August. So what they had there was me and all the guys from Berlin. So there were about 8 of us there. Still quite a few. So yeah, the second trial which he'd scheduled hadn't even started. That was linked with my co-defendant. So yeah, that's something else. So we're still all sat there waiting for sentencing, and he says, "Right, you're gonna have 5, you're gonna have 7, you're having 10, but we're gonna take one off. You've been on remand for a year, so we're gonna bump it up a little bit. Yeah, Mr. Lawrence, you can have 18 years, and then Vlad, you're having 18 years, and then so right, Mr. Jones," and he goes on about all this. He's rattling away about a few things, and he says, your mitigation. He says, you try to mitigate that you served in the forces for your country, and we recognise your service. He said, however, your biggest mitigation would have been to plead guilty in the face of overwhelming odds. And I thought, what are you saying, mate? He's saying I haven't got the right to run a trial. So he gave me an extra year for being an idiot and running a trial base. So I would have got 14. He says, so that based on that, I'm going to give you 15 years. And I thought, did you say 15 years? Looked across at the gallery to my wife, my dad, my friends, and everyone like that. They're just staring at me. I went, and he said, take him down. I said, I'll call you later. That's all I could say. I could see the devastation in them. You could see that they just lost their son, husband, friend. But they're not thinking do half. They're thinking 15 years.
Flat.
Yeah, they're thinking that's it. My kids were in there, obviously. And my poor wife at the time was then thinking, how am I going to tell the kids? Their dad's just going to get sent away for what is the equivalent of more than they've been alive at that time. That's a lifetime for them.
What was that phone call like?
That was a tough one. So basically, we were in Bristol. So I don't know how many times I said 15 years in my head, walking down the stairs, walking into the cells. It didn't help when people say, "Oh, mate, I'm really sorry there about that." I said, you're not helping. It's 15 years is 15 years. I'm how you dress it up. Yeah, I didn't get to ring her for a couple of days because trying to get onto the phones is difficult and money wasn't good. So she'd booked the visit, I think. She came in and saw me. But I think within about a week, we were being sent off to our Cat B up in Loudon Grange. So those of us who got more than, say, 10 plus went to Loudon. Those who got less went to probably Earlstoke or something like that. So myself, my other coder, I won't say his name, went off up to there with Lawrence and Vlad. Didn't come straight away, and I don't know why. There's something outstanding, I think, which they had to address. So off I went to Loudon, and what a change. Private prison. We'd heard it was this land of milk and honey. This jail is private, run by Serco. Even my briefer said, if you get to go anywhere, get to Loudon Grange. You'll understand why when you get there. So it's 2012. We arrived up in Nottingham, and 3.5 hours on a sweat box in a really hot summer's day. And you get in there and you go on to, this is big boys jail now. It's not Cat A, so there are bigger jails, but this is a big boys jail. People doing big lumps have come down from the category A's. People doing 10 years plus. Average sentence length is probably about 20 years in there. Some big people in for big conspiracies, importations, lifers, attempted murders, everything. And we got in there and we're on the induction wing, and straight away it was nice in comparison, although the food was diabolical because we were on a default menu because we hadn't chosen our menu. So they had to, because of dietary requirements and everything else, had to give us a vegan option, which I was very unhappy about, but it did the job. So me and my friend got into the cell, and he was quite a big chap at the time. He's 23 stone. And there's not a lot of room in these cells to move around, but the most amazing thing was we found there was a phone in there, in the wall, like a normal phone you have. And I looked at it and I said, yeah, that's the phone. We were issued a PIN number, and you applied to get your names, your phone was put onto this PIN. You dial the PIN, that says your account, and you dial the number you want, and you ring home. So rather than standing on a wing phone, queuing up with people screaming and shouting, you can ring home from there. And that was amazing. And then toilet was in the cell, which was not great because the vegan menu didn't help my Cody when he got for a shit every morning at 7:30. And I'm in the cell. We're still locked up at the time. There's no escape. So I remember when my face pressed up against his window, trying to breathe air through this little mesh. Eyes were stinging and everything. That was really bad. And within 3 weeks, because we were enhanced, we moved on to the enhanced wings. So we got onto J wing, which is nice block 3, and that's when you realise how comfortable it is. Single cells, shower in your cell.
What?
Yeah. You walk in, it's like an ensuite. Well, it's not an ensuite. You've got a cubicle which has got your toilet, your sink and your shower. Then you've got your bed, you've got a unit with your TV, and the TVs are plumbed into the wall. You've got your digital TV, all your standard digital channels. Sky was on there, and a prison channel which did movies every night. It showed a different movie. It was amazing. So my introduction to J-Wing was, it was a hot summer's day, but back end of July, yard was out. Every wing had its own yard with its pull-up bars and dip bars, everything else. And I walked up to it and I saw people sat outside, led outside on their mattresses, sunbathing with MP3 players. And I looked and I thought, this is going to be all right. If I've got to spend a few years doing this, then I'll do it like this. And it was like that. So we were on J-Wing for a while, which was good. Now, what we found was there was a better wing to head for. Now, Vlad had by this time had landed with Lawrence onto J-Wing with me. My other Cody that I was sharing with, he wasn't enhanced, so he didn't get to go to J-Wing with me. He went to an unenhanced block, a bit more lively. But when he got us enhanced, he got straight down to a P-Wing, which is House Block 5, which was the newer house blocks. And I got down there in October 2012, and it changed again. It was like I thought jail was good, but this is something else. The cells are bigger. The people on there are sensible. There's no idiots on there. Just people just doing their time, you know. Big names, right? Kenny Noy on there, you know, from the murder thing back in the 90s. You just got on with a few big players from the drugs game. And it was like, it was a different world. It was calm. You saw us like walking on the side, do you need anything, mate? You know, we've got food in the fridge. There's fridges on the wings. Oh, yeah, help yourself to some food. So you open it up and everyone's got their own little shelf. They've got their boxes labelled and no one's nicking nothing. Got microwaves on the wing. Yards open all day. And that was it. So you started doing your job.
Did you interact with Kenny Nye or have any Kenny Nye stories?
A little bit. No stories. No, we did a bit of training together and Kenny was really quiet. He would just spend most of the day sat on the yard with his MP3 and reading the paper, just soaking up the sun. And he was in good shape, mind. He would do the gym and he would train hard. But he just got left alone. He interacted with people that he wanted to, spoke to people that he wanted to. To be fair, he just got on with it. You know, he was just another guy in jail. You know, there was a few people in there which, you know, that everyone's on their best behaviour, aren't they, when they're inside? Everyone's behaving because they want to go home. They don't want to get involved in politics and start, you know, getting in trouble. So, yeah, Kenny was all right. He just kept quiet, did his thing. He'd been in for like 20 odd years already, hadn't he? So 20, 25 years. So he'd done a bit of time.
Was he going to get out at some point?
Yeah, he's out now.
Oh, he's out now?
He's out, yeah. He got moved off to a Cat C while I was there. Then I think he's got Cat D. I think he got released maybe last year before.
Who did he allegedly kill?
Oh, I can't remember the name of the guy. It was the M25. They're known as the M25 killer, wasn't it? He stabbed a guy, a road rage incident.
Road
he
rage.
stabbed him, yeah.
Wow.
Can't remember the chap's name now. Yeah.
Did anyone try and scam you?
What, in there?
Yeah.
No, it was weird because I had my own scams going on. It was quite good. Not against the lads. So when you get a trusted job, I went down the route of trying to work in trusted jobs because I didn't get money sent in. I thought if my wife is struggling as it is outside, the last thing I'm going to do is badger her for money. So I need to fend for myself in it financially. So I got a job. My first job was working in the block down in, it's called American the Hole, isn't it? Or the CSU or the I, whatever they want to call it. But it's well paid. It was
yeah.
Yeah, it was a better paid job. So I was on, I think, about 40 quid a week. For a prison wage, that's pretty good.
It's huge.
You know, but Loudon Grange is weird. They pay you to go to healthcare. If you had an appointment, they pay you to 50p. It's 50p, but it's a free 50p. So we used to get the food from the kitchen. So we would go to, if the block was isolated in a different part of the prison, so we would have to go and get the food during the day. So we get escorted by the staff down to the kitchens, get the trolley. The guys in the kitchen knew that we'd be going back to the wing. The guys that worked on our wing, sorry, we got some eggs for you. Put them on the top. This guy's all there, the sandwiches. These trolleys are stacked with boxes and cabinets, and there's all sorts of stuff on there. So we disguise a few boxes of eggs in there as well. And we wheel it back to the block, chuck the eggs in a bag or into our coat. And then we would just walk out the block and get escorted back to the wing, and we'd load the wing up with eggs. Because you're not allowed to buy raw eggs if you haven't got correct cooking facilities. But people do them scrambled egg in the microwave or poached egg in the kettle, whichever they want to do. But we used to get a lot of food floating around. And I got a job working on recycling about a year later, where we would again go to the kitchens, collect the bins. And the bins would be like the lads would be chucking tins of tuna, tins of whatever, you know, wrapping up joints of meat and cling film and chucking them in there. You know, you'd be getting all sorts thrown into those bins. And we'd get back and then just brush it off, stick it in your big high-vis jacket and get it back on the wing. You know, so we were having it pretty good, you know. So sorry if anyone's still doing that. I do apologise if I've ruined your scam.
The good times never last.
No.
You ended up in HMP Oakwood?
Yeah, so the weird thing is, HMP Oakwood was private, same as Loudon. So my co-defendant, I kind of moved through this prison sentence with, he went off to Oakwood in 2013. We write and he said, you've got to come here. It's amazing. There's a wing called Douglas Wing. So we got chickens, we got rabbits outside, we got everything. So you got to get on this wing. I thought, sounds all right. He said, we got fresh eggs from the chickens. You don't have to steal them. I said, right, okay, well, I'm due to be downgraded next year in 2014, so I'll head that way. So I got downgraded to Category C in September 2014, jumped on the bus, back on the sweatbox, and we've not been out of the jail for 2 years, the first time we could see in the world for a couple of years. Drove across the Midlands to Oakwood, and this place is big, biggest jail in the country. It's at the time it's 1,600 people, and it's bigger than that now. So it's a big old place, and it's huge. And everyone's been saying all the time, when you're in a Cat B jail, don't rush to get to your Cat C. The aim is to get your Cat D so you can go home on home leaves, but you're not getting that to the last couple of years. So don't rush to get in a Cat C. You're going to be sat there with people who are, and no disrespect, but people who are a lot of idiots who are doing their time differently. It's a bit more lively. People aren't as, the lack of interpersonnel skills, communication skills are bad. Don't rush. Before I got 5 years left. So on Landon and Oakwood, still 5 years to go. So I get there straight away. You must be undercover. People looking at me in this weird way. But luckily, I've got a couple of years prison behind me now. I got more prop in my trolley than 5 of these guys who've just come in from court. So I think, well, where's he? He's got an Xbox. He's got his toaster. He's got his quilt and his pillows.
Do you think it's your military bearing and how you speak versus like the typical what people imagine a convict looks like and acts like?
Yeah, 100%. And that's exactly it. It's how you carry yourself. And a lot of guys I speak to now who've done a bit of time, so they always get labelled as undercover because of how you are. You don't fit that normal criminal profile. You just don't look like someone that's been out breaking the law, which ain't a bad thing. So yeah, straight away labelled as undercover. But fortunately, I got Cody on Douglas wing. He said, "Right, we'll get you over as soon as we can." So I've had to spend a few time on the council estate on the normal wings, and he got me onto Douglas and landed on there. And you've seen all the people that have come from this P wing or Loudon Grange have filtered down onto this wing because Douglas was a long-termers wing. In the whole jail, it's an isolated wing. It's smaller. It's 85 guys on there, and it's all long-termers and lifers. People doing some long sentences there, and I walked on, and it was like walking back into a civilized community again, like walking onto P-Wing for the first time. There's your cell. Do you need a telly? Can I get you anything? Are you okay for it? They're like, yeah, there's your dinner. We sorted your dinner out for you. It was totally different. And the ethos on that wing, and I'll go into how that prison was in a bit, but it was something else. I've never known anything like it. And people now, they ask about how that prison is run. They don't believe it because it's the number one prison in the country and has been for a good 2-3 years. It's got I think 4 stars in the inspection. And that's nearly unheard of. It was amazing. So I got a job. My first job was animal care, looking after the chickens and the rabbits, which was amazing because I got that job I got on the wing in, I think it's in the beginning of November 2014. So it's quite cold, quite miserable, quite wet. But I got this job looking after the rabbits and chickens, which I thought, that's nice. I'm out in a separate enclosure. Got the yard is here, the wing's there, and you got the animal enclosure. So it's like I'm in my own little separate bit. I got my own shed. I used to take a flask out with a cup of coffee. I sit out there all day and just enjoy the fact that I'm not in what would be considered as normal prison. So that was great. And then the following year in January 2015, I was offered a job as a veterans in custody rep. Was that changed things for me completely? That set me off on a different direction, looking after the veterans in custody. And there's a lot of us inside in that jail.
More than half my friends in Arizona in jail were veterans.
Yeah.
Combat PTSD, didn't get any help, got on street drugs to self-medicate, ended up in prison.
Yeah. That's a classic thing. There's a lot of guys, and again, signing the times with Afghanistan and what's going on over in Iraq as well. A lot of guys coming out and they're just totally lost in the direction. They don't know what's going on. A lot of domestics, a lot of violence, a lot of drinking and substance misuse issues. And they're just getting out and doing silly little things and they're just getting put inside.
Yeah.
So I got the job as a rep looking after these guys and I started to build that reputation looking after them. And this is where I found out that Oakwood was different because I kind of had the opportunity to do some research about questioning the guys, how did you get in jail? What went so wrong? And realised a lot of them had the same problems that I did. That transition, that sense of belonging. We all kind of suffered the same things, all in different categories in different ways, but we all suffered the same basic issues. So I spoke to some of the people. You got the interventions team, which deal with your sentence planning. What they'll do is when you go in, you'll be given a sentence plan. You need to address certain things, i.e. your offender behaviour. Look at, what put you in prison. So you might be given a course. If it's violence, it might be anger management. If it's drugs, substance misuse, and so on and so forth. So I asked around to some of the staff, said, are there any courses available for veterans to address our mentality, to address our offender behaviour? And they did some research. They said, no, there's nothing on the system. Right, okay. Can I write one then? They said, well, if you want. So I did. I had another job at the time working with probation in the prison. I had access to a laptop as part of my job. So I hammered out a course. I wrote a course for veterans, and it's called Project TLS. So what I did is I looked at my transition or lack of, and I basically sat there and I created, it's 12, but I did 11 modules, and I wrote this course basically asking myself a shitload of questions, starting off with, why did I join the army? Why did I leave the army? And I thought this can create a dynamic in a room full of veterans. We can talk or discuss our experience. So I wrote the course.
Wow,
and
well done.
so that was finished in June 2016, I finished writing that. Delivered it to a veteran as a pilot or as a case study, October that year. Great results. So I did another 4 case studies. Brilliant results. Then a director, the governor, gave me permission to deliver a pilot course in 2017. He said, right, we're going to give you a room. The room will be open on the education wing, but you're down to you. You run it. Tell us how much you need. We'll give you your biscuits and your coffee. We'll give you your flip charts and all the stuff you need, all your stationery with all your printing for you. Deliver your course. So I got 5 veterans in. I did a pilot. And I did that through 2017. Delivered like 4 courses. Not many, but enough to get the research back to see how the dynamic works. Great results all round. Showed improvement. Showed we did a pre and post course report or a questionnaire to see if they'd actually learned anything. They did. Great results all round. So they said, right, okay, 2018, I want you to deliver that now. So by this time now, I'm starting to go home on home leaves. 2017, I've been lowered to category D. And I got the option to move to an open prison. But I'm also thinking to myself, if I go there, I'm not going to deliver this course. I'm going to lose that momentum. So the director said, look, there was a situation, in fact, I'll go back slightly, 2016, prior to me getting loads of Cat D, my dad had a phone call from me, I rang my wife. Said, you okay? I said, yeah. I said, are you sat down? I went, oh God, please say it's not the kids. She said, it's your dad. I said, is he alive? Yeah, he's alive. Okay, he's alive. What's happened? He's been in an accident. So it talked me through it. So basically what's happened is my dad's up this ladder trimming his bushes or his neighbour's bushes because they've encroached onto his property. So he's chopping them down. He's up this ladder and he's had a fall. He's landed on the shears, put him through his neck.
Oh!
And he's done the carotid artery or the jugular. He's done it. He's bleeding out. So what's happened is he's clearly unable to shout to my stepmom, bleeding out. She comes out and finds him dead on the floor. I mean, he come through it. Blood everywhere. So she's trying to arrest what's bleeding there is. She's trying to ring the ambulance with blood on her hands. The phones aren't working. She gets the ambulance out there. They come back. They pump some fluids into him. They revive him, bring him round, get him into the hospital. So we're unaware of the full details of this. My wife just said, yeah, he's fucked. In a word, he's fucked. So I said, all right, okay. He's alive, yeah? He's alive. Yeah, he's alive, but he's not good. Right, okay, all right, thank you. So I spent that night thinking, oh, God, is he gonna live or die? And it's inevitable. You spend that much time away, you think you're going to lose someone. I lost me nan, lost me auntie, lost my uncle in that time. Never got to say goodbye to any of them. And that's sad. But my dad, God, I felt guilty that I felt guilty because I thought, at least it's not my kids, because that does happen. So anyway, the next day goes by, me bringing my wife every hour. Any updates? Well, no change yet. He's still in the intensive care. And then I rang on the Thursday. They said they're taking him into surgery to relieve the pressure on his brain because of the internal bleeding, because he's had a fall and he's damaged his head. Right, okay. So Friday morning, I rang up and I said, how are we getting on? She said, you better sit down. I said, what's up? She said, we've been told he's probably not going to make it. I said, oh, right, okay, and that's bad, isn't it? He said, yeah. He said, it's unlikely he's going to pull through. They've had to do a partial lobotomy and remove a section of his brain, and including that as part of the skull was gone. Wasn't aware of that at the time. So I said, right, okay. So I've gone to the wing staff. So look, I think my dad's going to die. Okay, well, we'll set the wheels in motion, get in touch with chaplaincy, not as a religious thing, but they're the ones which authorise you to be taken out as an end-of-life visit. So I see my mates, oh, yeah, my dad's going to die, trying to start that out, but I'm in bits. I'm really, really bad. And chaplaincy turn up. It's all very sort of like, are you going to be okay? I said, well, you know, by this time, I'd boxed off my emotions years ago with my kids, because squaddies do it. When you go on operational tour, you can't compartmentalise your emotions. You don't allow yourself to feel anything. I'd done that a long time ago after I had a visit with my youngest, and he was really upset. I was just sort of like, I'm not going to go through that again. So I boxed everything off. So really, it was emotionally, I was quite strong, or lack of emotion would be the word to use. And so yeah, I was trying to get my head around the fact that my dad was going to die. And then the Saturday morning, they came and got me and said, we're taking you out. So, I'm going to get to go out. I said, yeah, we're taking you out in cuffs. Going to take you down and see your dad. I was like, wow. So can I ring my wife? I said, not officially, but ring her up and tell her when you're going to be there. But you shouldn't be doing it. But because they take your phone out of your cell, but you can use your PIN number on someone else's phone. So I rang up from a mate's phone. Said, look, you know, I'm coming back to see dad. Make sure you're at the hospital with the kids. So they took me back in the car. I was cuffed up, cuffed to the staff. But I was going out. First time out of jail in a car. First time back to Bristol since 2013, since POCA. So this is like 6 years later. Or no, sorry, 5 years later. Or 3 years later, whatever it was. But anyway, it was years later. And it's weird arriving back in Bristol because everything had changed. You go on holiday for a week and it's changed. They've built a house or something on the drive, haven't they? So, you know, everything is different, and the hospital was brand new. I'm walking through, I didn't care that people were staring at me. I didn't care because I just couldn't see my dad. And got into the intensive care and walked into the room. My wife's just turned up with my kids, big hugs all round, of course, as best as you can when you're cuffed. And my dad's led there, and his head's really swollen. I walked over there and I thought, oh, shit, this is bad. I'm sort of cuffed. They've let me off one of the cuffs now, so I've kind of tethered to one of the officers there, sat on his left-hand side. I'm looking at him thinking, it's weird. And his left side was really cold, and he's led down. I squeezed his hand and I said, Dad, can you hear me? He wiggled his foot. I said, Dad, the things you do to get me out of prison is unreal. Wiggled his foot again. And that was amazing because he's actually heard me. So, yeah, I told him how I felt. And then, yeah, I said goodbye. Then we left. But I felt amazing because, excuse me, I had a chance to sort of close the deal a bit. And when I seen him, and I felt over the moon, I was sort of like going back to jail. I thought, it doesn't matter if he dies now because I said goodbye. And it's like closure. And then I got up at jail and I was smiling. I was happy. I thought it's done now. So the day goes on, around my wife, so how is he? So he's still the same. So the next day goes by, he seems to have perked up a little bit. Right, okay. So a few more days passed. We'd found out he'd had a stroke. So he'd had a stroke, and that's why he had the swelling on the brain. It was really bad. And then a few more days go by, and they said, he seems to have opened his eyes now, and I think he's going to be all right. I thought, shit, he's going to pull through this.
What?
And he did.
He did?
Yeah, he pulled through.
Holy shit.
So I got a free visit, but the beauty of it was, he actually got better. So what they did, he went through a series of operations, and what they had to do, they had removed a large chunk of the brain to reduce the swelling. And they had to do a thing called a partial rhinoplasty. We had to put a plate, because his head, once the swelling had gone down, there was a mass cavity. Like you see these gunshot victims where they've had half their head blown off, but it's just like there's no structure to the skull. It's like that. So they took me out to see him again, cuffed up. And that's the first time I've seen him since saying goodbye to him. And turned up, and he's got no filter anymore because part of the brain that deals with that is gone. So he's burst out crying. I burst out crying. Went in and seen him, and I was still tethered to an officer. I had a chat with him, and that went really well. And I applied for another ROTL again, release on temporary license, I think it was April 2017. And we're going to take you out uncuffed this time. We're gonna take you out with your offender supervisor to see your dad, because he just had the operation now to put the plate in his head. We'll take you down to see him. So he took me out uncuffed, and they basically dropped me off at the hospital and said, right, go see your dad, we're back in an hour. And I was like, what do you mean? You didn't tell me this part. This wasn't part of the script. And they said, yeah, we'll trust you'll be back here again. I said, yeah, don't worry about that. I said, I couldn't believe it. So they just dropped me off at this. He was in like a halfway house between hospital and residential. So let me off the cuffs, and I wandered off. My wife was there with my kids, and I said, like that, and they couldn't believe it. Wow. So I spent an hour with my dad, then back to prison again. Then that next day they lowered me to category D. So that brings me to the point where the choice was given then, do you want to go to open conditions or stay in Oakwood and do your course? So the directors said they were beginning to introduce open prison conditions in that Cat C, the closed jail, by letting you go out into the community and work outside. So give me a job working in the visiting centre outside the prison. So I was being released every day for about 2.5 years, just over 2 years, working outside Oakwood in the visiting centre. But I was coming back in to deliver my course. So I maintained that. I kept doing the course delivery. So because I was being let out of the prison, people were beginning to recognise what I was doing with veterans. So they said, well, do you want to come and do a talk? I said, where is that? So we're going down to Imogen Barracks in Gloucester. So they're aware of what you're doing, of your transition and your story and the difficulties you faced, and they'd like to hear your journey, but they don't know you're a prisoner. That's right, okay, that's fine. So we turned up to Imogen Barracks, and I wasn't expecting much. And it's a big conference. It's like a briefing centre. It's like an auditorium. It's huge. And I'm looking at it saying, oh my God. And there with a few members of staff. And they're talking about how the prison system works, how veterans in custody are affected. And everyone sat there doesn't know I'm a prisoner. And I stood up and they said, we're going to introduce Rich. He runs veterans in custody in there. I stood up and said, good afternoon, my name's Rich. And I said, I've been issued 2 numbers in my life. The first one is my military number, blah, blah, blah. Second was my prison number. And it stopped. It went silent. And they looked at me and they thought, I said, yeah, I haven't escaped, don't worry. And I just told the story about my background, about organised crime and everything that we've heard just now. And it was really well received. And it was quite powerful. It was very, I think, nice to see the military community not judging you. They kind of see you, they know what kind of people join up. They know we're prone to making silly mistakes and taking silly risks. So they're kind of more thankful that I was honest. And that kind of spurred me into then to think, right, okay, there's something here. So I did a few more of these. I did some stuff with West Mids Police, did a few speeches with them. I was invited down to Portishead Police Training Centre. The first ever serving prisoner to go into their training centre and tell them about my journey and say, well, this is what's lacking, this is what we need to do. And off the back of that, with an amazing sergeant called, I just call him Sergeant Jones, he's an MBE now, that's how good he is. We set up a veterans, like a network of police officers who support veterans on the street now. And so that's all come from the stuff that we've been doing in the background. So yeah, I've done a few of those, and I was building up for release for July 2019. And the aim was to go back into Oakwood and continue delivering the course. However, there are other plans afoot with COVID, which kind of got in the way a little bit.
Man, what an inspirational way to wrap this story up then. What is your life like now, and what happened with your missus? Yeah,
so I think the difficult thing, I went through a hell of a lot of changes inside. I'm still the same person, but I'm motivated very differently now. And I think the sad thing is the person that came out of prison that my wife waited for wasn't the person that came out of prison. Someone else came out, and I was different. And we sat down and we had a chat last year. We said, look, we think it's run its course. We were together since 1998, technically last 7 years didn't count because I was away, but we were together for a long time. And we said, let's call it a day. Let's move on. Let's be good about this, because there's going to come a point when it might become less amicable. So we chose to split, which was the best decision for both of us, because it allowed me to focus on my work So it's been really good. Apart from the obvious with COVID, Project TLS, which I'm working with now, is I've set up a furniture bank and a food bank where I support veterans. I'm still looking at doing my talking. As soon as I'm allowed to do that, get back in the prisons and deliver the course. There's an organisation called SAFA, military charity. They're amazing. They've been going longer than the British Legion. They're amazing. They supported me massively coming out with things I've needed, like a laptop and stuff that you've needed to get yourself on your feet. I train their staff that go into the prisons and support veterans in custody. So I now train their staff and teach them what it's like to go into a prison and what you're going to be confronted with. What kind of people are you going to see? What are their issues? What are you going to be managing? So I train their staff. So that's a good thing. I work with a company called We Like to Move It. Amazing. They've backed me all the way. They give me a job from day one. Flip side of that is we get donated furniture from people we move house to go to a furniture bank to support veterans who need somewhere to live. So there's loads of stuff I'm doing. Tons of it. Trying to get into colleges and universities, talk about criminology, and people probe my mind a little bit and dig a little bit deeper. So there's plenty doing. And I've recently released my book, Charlie 4 Kilo, which came out.
Slow down. What was the name of the book?
Charlie 4 Kilo.
Charlie.
My two favourite letters.
The number 4.
It's actually the word 4.
Word 4 and then kilo.
Yeah.
Oh, and your book is published?
Yeah, published on Amazon now.
Right, we're going to have a link for that in the description box if people want to check that out. I'm sure some will. How hard was it to write a book?
It was interesting. It was always plan B, because plan A was not to get caught and get a not guilty at court. And I thought to myself, if I get caught, I got enough there for a pretty decent book. But it kind of lay dormant for a long time. It was always toying with it. But when you're inside, you haven't really got the access to write a book. It's pointless writing it down on paper and then redoing it all again, because I'd never read my writing. So while I was on these day releases, I again had access to a laptop. So I thought I'd start writing. So I did. It was quite cathartic because it was nice. It had moments where it's very difficult because you're kind of like, it's obviously based on true events. It's not a true story. It's based on true events. It has to be worded in a certain way, doesn't it? You're remembering things from a long time ago. And this book's particularly about a period in my life where it is chaos. It's bad. Debts, arrests. This is prior to the main arrest. So this was back in prior to 2010, 05 sort of time. Long time ago. So it's a really difficult era to go through where my mental health takes a proper bad turn. And but yeah, it's all right. It was great writing it. I just wrote it because I wanted to write it. I didn't even think about publishing. Didn't think about any of that. I just thought, let's just get this book done. And then luckily I came across an agent who said that he can get it done. And he did the whole process from manuscript to getting it out to Amazon. So yeah,
sweet, really
interesting journey. I've got to do. It's just one part. I've got to do 4 parts to that one story because it's too much. It's way too much. So I've had to split. So that's part 2. Part 1's going to be a prequel. Next is part 3, then 4. Then part 1 will be the last one I do, and that's going to be the bit of like, how did he end up doing what he did? Well, we already know now. I've given it away, but
when you were leaving the prison, then finally,
yeah.
The people you've bonded with on the inside because you served so long.
Yeah.
How does it feel leaving them behind?
Horrible. Really weird, because I was on a lifers wing and these guys have been inside for a long time. And I got 2 people there's loads that I'm really close with, and I'm in touch with 2 of them all the time. And you do get, life catches up, doesn't it? You tend to sort of move on a little bit, and you should write to more people, you should email them, and you should this. But what with COVID, it's been difficult to try and get in. There's no visits. That's not happening. So I'm in touch with 2 good friends. And there's another guy I want to get in touch with. Really good. He's a lifer. He's doing it a long time.
Because you feel bonded for life with people when you've been through certain experiences, because they're the only ones who understand it fully, aren't they?
Yeah. And they're there for you. Like when my dad nearly died, they're there for you. They're your family. They're the ones sat in your cell on the end of your bed when you got your head in your hands thinking, what am I going to do?
And how's your dad now?
He's all right. Yeah. He's WhatsApping. Yeah, he's okay.
He said his filter's gone.
Yeah.
Does that mean like he'll swear and stuff?
Oh, he's terrible. He's awful. I can't even say the sort of things he says on it.
Really? Like Tourette's?
Yeah. Oh, it's worse.
Worse than Tourette's?
Yeah. Yeah. He's
Wow.
funny though. He doesn't realize how funny he is.
Yeah.
But he's fine. We haven't seen him for a year because of COVID.
Yeah.
But he's had COVID as well, and he's survived it.
Mhm.
We thought we've written him off twice in the last
Bloody
year.
hell.
Yeah, he's made us strong stuff.
And how does your mum handle him with the salt? With
Well,
the
my
filter gun?
stepmom's really good.
Yeah.
She's fine. She gets to see him as much as she can.
Yeah.
It is stressful with him. He is quite hard work, but he's under full-time care because he's not capable of looking after himself.
Gotcha.
He's paralysed. He's got one side, but that's his right hand is his phone. That's it. He's okay. Considering he should have been dead a long time ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's all right.
Bloody hell, man! What a story. Do you have any idea how long you've been sat there for?
3 hours and 40 minutes. No, I don't know.
3 hours, I think, just under 3 hours. Yeah,
that's not bad.
It goes fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So all the people who are watching this then have been gripped for the last 3 hours. What would you like to say to them in conclusion? And I'm sure there's a lot of ex-military or maybe current military guys out there who have perhaps been inspired by what they heard today.
I think certainly for the military, transition is really difficult, and there's thousands of charities out there for a reason, because we struggle. And I think the main thing is don't let your pride get in the way, because if you don't ask for help when you really need it, and that is usually when things first start going wrong, you can slide so far down a certain path that it's usually too late. And once your pride is gone, too many homeless veterans, too many suicides from mental health. Take the help when you need it. Take it straight away. Don't put it off because help's there now. Don't feel like there's someone else more deserving, because you'll deserve it. And for anyone else, I think just enjoy your life, but be careful what choices you make. We can all have a good time, but just think about your routes you're going to take, your lifestyle choices.
Some good life lessons there as well. Some of the people I met who perhaps some of the viewers are familiar with their stories. Two Tonys was ex-military. Frankie was ex-military. T-Bone, ex-US Marine. And there's just so many soldiers just end up in prison. And the government needs to address this situation. It's ridiculous that people who put their lives on the line for the country end up, in an institution like that. It's really sad. And the addiction issues that come about with it as well because of the trauma and stuff like that. So absolutely that needs to be addressed. What links would you like us to put below the video? We'll put a link for your book. Are you on the socials? Is the preferred method people can contact you?
Yeah, I mean, my website's one of the best ones, charlie4kilo.com. I'm on all the social medias anyway, under the Project TLS on Instagram, The Lost Soldier on Instagram. I'm TikToking the hell out of the world at the minute, so I've got
people say I need to get on TikTok, but what is this all about?
Honestly, it's absolutely nuts on there.
Is it?
It's very consuming.
Yeah.
I'll
have to delegate it to someone.
Yeah,
my Insta's delegated.
Yeah. I need to start thinking about that because it's taken a lot of time up, but it's necessary to get. This is my PR campaign with the book. When I was on there, I went on because I knew I had to try and get awareness out there.
Mm-hmm.
Most social media, I'm on that.
Yeah. All right. So please go down and click on Richie's links. And if you're interested in his book, check it out. Huge thank you to Joe and James for coming out today to film this. And huge thank you to you, the viewers, for supporting the channel. Subscription logo is in the bottom corner down there. And in the description box are all our links, our socials, our playlists, and our donation links. All right, Rich, give us a hug, man. Thank you. For coming in. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, well done. Yeah, cheers. Yeah.